Well, we are here tonight. This is Russ Dizdar, ShatterTheDarkness.net. This is the SIIU training course. Listen, we're doing this for the first time, and we are glad that so many of you, a couple hundred or more, live every single week, but also now well over 2,000 that are into the course, downloading weekly, taking a look at everything, so we're glad. May God give grace and mercy and help to all of us, to the law enforcement agents and officers and retired cops and those that want to, honestly, really work at nailing down some of this. It's going to take some prayer. It's going to take the hand of God. It really does, because supernatural powers are real. They really are all around us. Let me welcome everybody. We call it the chat room online, but actually it's our classroom. So let me welcome you to the classroom tonight. Glad you're here. Glad you're a part. Glad you're going to be a part of this evening. Let me ask you if the sound is okay tonight. I want to make sure that that is going on. We have a different level set up tonight, so we're going to see how that works and check that out. Welcome, everyone. Welcome. Good to see you. Come on into the classroom tonight. I know that many of you are, by far, the overwhelming majority of you are doing this course by the archives. And how do you get to the archives? If you're brand new tonight, we're glad you're here. But go to ShatterTheDarkness.net, ShatterTheDarkness.net, and that will give you all the insight. That will give you the Monday night course. When you see the Occult Satanic Crimes course, click on it. It takes you to the website for the SIIU. It tells you about the course. It tells you about the archives. We have a total of 9 weeks, close to 27 hours. We are now in week number 9. We did 2 weeks for week number 8, if you remember. And we are at week 9 tonight. So glad you're here. Welcome to all of you coming in. Glad you are participating in what may be an incredible venture. Maybe we have victims that are listening. Maybe we have others that are checking things out. There's no question the other side has been checking out this course. They want to know what we're teaching, but I really felt that we had to really engage on a broader scale, more information. And you're in the first 9 weeks. You are in the basics and the foundations and the basic principles. The course is free. The workbook costs a little bit. We encourage you to get it because we try to go by it point by point. You need to write down the information. If you're going to be a part of helping individuals, you're going to need to write down the information. You're going to need to help. And you're going to need to get the insight that God gives. And I know that some people that are listening, and officers and others, that, you don't know God, you don't have any connection there yet. But there's a Savior that loves you, and that maybe one of the reasons you're here providentially is that you'll hear that God loves you, that you can know God, that Christ is alive, and that you can know His presence and power. And who can better help you in dealing with radical evil? Who can better help you in dealing with this underground stuff? Well, glad you're all here coming in. We're going to welcome everybody from actually now around the world that is into this course. I don't know if you heard about it. We're going to mention a couple of things tonight, some cold case issues. We're going to welcome William Ramsey back again, author and speaker. And listen, I have talked with him a little bit off the air, and I am looking forward to see if I can get with him when I'm out in California and engaging him more in all that he's doing. One of the cold cases we're going to talk about later tonight, and an assignment for all of you, the Arliss Perry death. One of the articles I'm reading right now says this: the murder of Arliss Perry sounds like something of a P.D. James novel. A sweet, innocent bride of 19 is stabbed to death with an ice pick in a church. Her body violated in brutal fashion. The case leads to the son of Sam and appears in a book about the occult. But this is no pulp story, no checkout counter thriller. Arliss Perry was a real woman, a one-time cheerleader, victim of what may be Santa Clara County's most famous unsolved crime. For nearly 17 years, her death has befuddled investigators, haunted her family, and transfixed the Stanford University campus. On the evening of October 12, 1974, Arliss and her husband, Bruce Perry, they were sophomores at Stanford. And they had a small little argument or whatever it says here in this article, and the two were walking out to mail a letter when Bruce complained that she needed to check the air pressure, the tires of the car. A number of things went on. The bottom line is somehow she ended up at the church, the chapel, the big memorial church building on Stanford. And she is grabbed, brutalized. She is beaten, and they say it's an ice pick in the back of the side of the head. But she's also posed, and part of her, well, the brutalization includes an incredible dark occult connection, maybe to the Process Church. We're going to take a look at that tonight. Again, welcome to the chat room, classroom, and to all who are listening live, to all who will listen by the archives. May God summon you and call you into rescuing people, helping individuals. The first 19 to 20 weeks of this training course is all about, learning about it, engaging it, investigating, intervention. Later on, we'll do some training on the personal healing issue side. Let me read you another thing here. I just got today from a friend. It's just incredible. I did it earlier on the live radio. Quote, 6 arrested over voodoo prostitution ring in Nigeria after gang branded women with irons and forced them to sell sex. They tortured them and scared them with curses to force them onto the streets. I'm not going to read the whole article, but absolutely amazing. Let me ask tonight if you're hearing everything. Someone says in the chat room here, classroom, they're not hearing anything. Want to make sure you've got voice levels tonight. We're connected here from everything we see. How is the voice level? Sounds like it is. It's low. Let me see if I can get it up there and have them put it a lot higher. Let's try this tonight and see if that's going to work at all. And we will try that tonight and see how that does. Let me, sounds muffled. Sounds low. Others say it sounds good. So I'm not sure how to do this for you. We're going to try to make sure that it's hopefully coming out clear. We're hoping that it is. That's important for us. By the way, just so you know, we are recording all of this so that you can have it. You can have it later. In our recording of it, it's a little better sounding. So we hope that when you go to the archives later on, at least during this, and then we want you to check out the ones that we put up. Now, the Blog Talk ones do sound a little lower, and I don't like the sound quality, but that's what we have to work with right now. And of course, we have William Perry coming on in about an hour, and then we will get into some more and start working on the cases. If you have the workbook, we are on Volume 1, Week 9. Week number 9, page 95 in your workbook, page 95. And we want to make sure that you have, let me see, I don't know why. Everybody's hearing it a little bit low. That's pretty amazing to me. I don't know what else to do. We've got this turned up all the way when it comes down to the sound right here. So that's all we can do concerning it. We hope... all right, let's see if we can do this differently. We're going to take it down a little bit and see if that's a lot better. Good, okay. We're going to try. We will try that down the road also. Thank you. We appreciate that. Great, good. That sounds like it's better altogether across the board. Maybe the adjustments were just too much. Very good. Glad you're here. Put up the prayers tonight, please, as we ask God to give grace and mercy and to cover everyone involved in listening and those involved in wanting to help. May God bring extraordinary miracles and help to those who are victims, and those who are going through, all of the battle, SRA, MPD, DID. It's all about tragic and horrific abuse, satanic and mental and emotional and spiritual and ritual and all the rest. By the way, let me again throw out to you so that you'll research it. Some say maybe 10 million victims in the United States. They're in Canada, they're in Australia, they're in England, they're in Ireland, they're in all of Europe, they're in Italy, they're in Russia. This is a multi-continental, multinational issue. The victims began to show up later on in the, late 70s, early 80s, and then by the 90s, the millions. And so it's multinational. And it's pretty sequential because we have first generation throughout all those nations I've mentioned. Now we have second generation, third generation we're dealing with, and fourth, which are anywhere from just now being born till about 12 years old. So that's part of the issue. It's the victimization is bad enough, but then we've got the entire issue of this, the collective goal behind all of this. The truth is, in our engagement in the underground, it's all about their connection to globalism, a new order, the belief in a super being to come. And I know that's hard to believe or sounds like a conspiracy. Well, so is human trafficking, and so is the drug lords and the multi-billion-dollar industry when it comes to the drug lords. And by the way, the drug lords are using priests and priestesses to summon powers to beat out the competition and to protect them from cops and to advance the drug trade. Biblical prophecy tells us in the future that the drug trade and demon worship will be inseparable, and it's the thing on a global scale that many millions will not repent of, will not turn away from. Book of Revelation, maybe you need to read that again. Tonight, keeping records, audio, filming, notebook files, surveillance, tracking down victims, perpetrators, and our special guest at about 8:35 tonight, William Ramsey. So glad you're here. May God's grace and His empowerment and God's fierce boldness against radical evil and deep compassion for the victims be in and with you tonight. If you're on page 95, we want to go through this. We have 1 hour, or less than an hour, actually, to really nail this down tonight. And we want you to put some questions up, too. Keeping records. Now, again, I'm telling you that the first 9 weeks, these are absolutely essential. And I want you to know, if I was your trainer, instructor in a local class, I mean, we really want you to know that we want to hold you accountable. I know some listen because they just want to hear about the stuff. But some, I want you to understand that all that we've talked about so far are foundational issues. They will help you, prepare you, make you think through what you need down the road in helping victims and investigating. If it involves you finding children, if it involves you finding victims, if you've begun to work with MPD, SRA, and all of a sudden they disappear, or all of a sudden they get triggered out, or all of a sudden you get phone calls, or all of a sudden you're going to need things, well, please understand that's exactly the foundational things that you're going to need. And it all begins spiritually. And I will say this, with every ounce of my being, I do not believe you can crack into the underground without the hand of God. You can get to some of the stuff that happened later, the crime issues, but to crack in further and to even help get and retrieve victims out, you're going to need the hand of God and the grace of Christ. You're going to need the grace of God if you're going to look at crime scene photos. And by the way, in Volume 2 workbook, we are putting actual crime scene photos in that book. Okay? We're going to put a lot more in the second volume because you're going to get into the depths of things. You're going to get assignments for where you live. We want to have interaction with everyone that's beginning to work on cases in your area. And we're going to have, again, down the road when we have other law enforcement individuals that will be here too, that I know that are believers and others that are those who worked cases and have dealt with all of this. Volume 2 is going to be about 2 weeks. Now, please understand, this is week 9. This is the last week. We are coming back next week. We will be here next week dealing with cold cases, and we're going to have, I think, William Ramsey come back one more week to deal with the West Memphis 3 and that case. Then we're going to have a week break, if not two, and during that time, I will finish writing and put up for sale. I'll give you a week or 10 days prior to where you can order it, maybe more, and then we can go into the second half. And that will be good. We're going to probably do a local training here for those who want to come to the local area and see a major exhibit and see slides and see things that you have never seen in all of your life. That will probably be in October, late October, when we are back. So glad you're here. Appreciate you putting up. If you're looking for the first volume, you can go to shatterthedarkness.net. Left-hand side, you'll see the workbooks. Click on those; it'll take you there. And by the way, if you order any of the workbooks or any of the books or materials right now, when you order, enter in the word GLOW, G-L-O-W. They'll give you 20% discount. So that's good, very good. Please keep using that workbook. Oh, no, listen, we're going to make sure that you have those up to be ordered. The second volume notebooks will be up, and you'll be able to order them and get them in. If there's any delay in that at all, then we'll just deal with some casual, random case issues and some other issues before you actually have the workbook. Yeah, I won't start on the workbook till I know everybody has them in their hands. So that will be good. Tonight, page 95, we're dealing with keeping records, audio, filming, notebooks and files, 11 points tonight. Very important. Let's go over them. Keeping records. Sometimes it's hard because sometimes when you're working with MPD, DID, with runners, with all the stuff that comes in, you might want to design some kind of file, paperwork, where you begin to deal with individuals, writing down their name, writing down their history. As a matter of fact, you'll get a kind of, we call it an intake form in the second volume. The intake form is the beginning of your file on an individual. And that's going to involve a lot. That's going to involve X-Files. That's right, I see that. That's going to involve a lot of things. That's going to involve your working with them, all the people around them, perpetrators that might come, the phone calls that might come in, the spiritual warfare aspects. You're connecting the dots. People that we worked with 10, 12 years ago, we're seeing their children. We're seeing other individuals that we're interacting with. We're meeting other victims that know them. We are, so it just all keeps becoming bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger as you do this. So let me tell you this, 3 reasons for records, okay? Number 1, you can use, and again, volume 2, we will have probably in the workbook, but we'll also let you download it free, a PDF file on the intake form when you begin to work with a victim. And, all the information you need, all the check off and everything else, we'll give that to you in PDF form that way because, you might need 4, 5, or 6 of those depending on who you're working with. And those are going to be files that are going to be confidential. They're going to be yours. But let me tell you about records. Number 1 about the records. About records. Number 1, they become a prayer notebook. When you begin to write down the name of a person and their information and their family, and every single SRA, MPD, DID has a whole host of people around them, usually people that are involved, you got all kinds of things, where they originally came from, who their parents were, who their grandparents were, what the backgrounds are, where they went to school, if they were a part of a coven, were there other kids in the city, who are the doctors, who are the dentists, who are the other people involved, where are the locations. So you'll have an intake form that's about 9 pages long. And you'll have plenty of room to keep writing things down and writing things down and writing things down and writing things down. But I will tell you that one file that will become a prayer notebook for an individual. Let's just say the name is Susie. And you got Susie's name down, her last name down, her real name down. Some of those pages will deal with individual personalities that you engage and who you're talking to. And some of the cases of deliverance. And let me say to law enforcement, if you don't know how to do this part, get individuals that know how to do real, honest, clear, simple, biblical deliverance. because breaking the demonic powers in an SRA MPD can open them up to subpersonalities coming up and talking and telling and taking you to places and giving you information. And that is vital. That will become vital. So I'm going to say this. In a case file that we'll begin to give you, when we have the second volume out, it becomes, number one, a prayer workbook. Number two, it's a case file of a real human being. Don't forget that. It's a case file of a real human being whose life has been stolen, whose life has been taken from them. From generational issues and the breeding issues, and spiritually they've been designed and captivated spiritually, physically, mentally, training, and they've been and so much of what was normal childhood and normal things have been stolen from them. So please understand, it's a case file of a real human being, and never forget who they are. And even though we might have hundreds of files of people, I can open up old files and old pages and the way we used to do things and look at some of those, or even on my prayer map, and I can tell you a whole history and where it led to, and the engagement with the demonic, engagement with some subpersonalities and what they knew, and the salvation that occurred, the deliverance that occurred, and all the rest. So it's about a real human being. And if you're dealing with an SRA MPD, a real victim, then you're going to have, without question, family involved on some level. If you're dealing with an older person that has children, it's almost already going to be assured that the children are MPD, SRA already. You're going to deal with perpetrators, you're going to deal with a coven, you're going to deal with spiritual warfare, you're going to deal with crime issues, you're going to deal with decisions. So why we talked about earlier in this course about finding good officers that you know, that you trust, that you really are connected to, good lawyer issue if you have a friend to give you legal advice along the way or if needed, because the other side can come at you in many different ways. That's not to scare you, that's just to give you the foundational heads up prior to all of it occurring. If you get into the Arliss Parrott case and you're in California, and I know we're going to be out in California in the summer, we're going to go to that actual chapel, that church, the Memorial Church. We're going to look into it. We have already a connection to talk to the author of the book that wrote about it, and we're going to talk tonight with William Ramsey. And that case, see, in 1974, how do officers know about Aleister Crowley and the Process Church issues and, all of that? How do you know? So that's going to be very, very vital. All this what we're giving you is vital prior when you get into a case and the needs that you may have. The third thing is data banking everything. I mean, whether it's computer, you want to just, because here's what happens. I get phone calls about, we just got a thing today by an email about a town in southern Ohio and all kinds of information and actually some pictures. And I already wrote back to this individual. We'll look into the case. And we're going to find out more. We're going to ask more questions. We're going to begin to assess by what we know now what we're going to need to do. So we're going to start a case file. And that's going to start off a prayer agenda. We're going to pray over that. It's going to be a case about a real person, and it's going to be also then data bank in this thing. We are going to deal with how you put this in the computer, and what if you lose your hard drive. And so there's again, we're going to encourage you to always keep paper copy, and that's the best thing I can tell you, is to data bank, because down the road, the information one gives you from an area, you may find out later that others are connected or other victims. For example, I've got one individual we worked with years ago. When we first met her, she was 13. And what she came out of and what we found out was there's got to be at least another 10, 12, 14 victims just like her from the Akron, Ohio area that are out there that have, I don't know if they've gotten any help. I don't know if anybody's gotten to them. We're talking now, 20 some years later. So keep the paper for your legal issues, for your backup, because things can happen to computers. But it is true that data banking and computers, it's easier to do stuff. We're even doing some new things. And but let me say out of point numbers 1, 2, and 3. Number 1, prayer notebook, use it. Number 2, it's a case file of a human being with a lot of connections. Number 3, data bank it all, both computer and paper, and understand this: extreme confidentiality. Extreme confidentiality. Because you may be given information that may be, real criminal evidence. You may be taken to sites where blood is still there, or be given confiscated, stuff from a ritual site that has blood on it, that has DNA. So you're going to have to decide, like I said, in all of this, this is Shatter Intervention Investigative Unit. And that's what it's all about. So that's records. Number 2 that we're going to deal with here is audio. Let me answer a question real quick in the classroom here. What if their altar or even family file harassment charges? Well, that's why we mentioned last week on the lawyer issue, and that's why go over the last 2 weeks. Week number 8 was broken down into 2 weeks. That's why you're going to need, again, prayerfully looking and engaging and selecting and having legal counsel out there that can give you insight and help and really understand, what it is that you need to do. Number 1, protection, Psalm 91. Number 1, protection, the hand of God over everything. But there's no, Paul appealed to Caesar, and there's nothing wrong with a backup of connecting if you have to. We've never had to be engaged on that level because we have people we can go to, a whole host of people that we can go to. But so far we've not. We've been threatened. Others that we know personally have been sued by the false memory, engaged and brought into court and all kinds of stuff. So, point number 4 on the page 95 in the workbook under audio. Now, here's important stuff about audio. 3 things about audio. Number 1, you can put on audio victim information. That is, with their knowing, you can sit down with a little digital recorder or whatever else and set it out there and say, let's talk. Let's go over things. And so audio, a victim may, do that. You might want to get a separate little digital audio recorder to give to a victim, to ask them to tell things even when they wake up in the middle of the night, and give it to them to just pour out information whenever they can, and then get it later to download into your computer or download into a disk or whatever. But so you can have victim information on audio, their voice. The other side of that is the subpersonalities. Sometimes the main person will go away, other personalities will talk, and that's going to be amazing concerning what you get to actually hear. Some victims who are just beginning to break out have never heard subpersonalities talk. Hey, by the way, we have our retired friend inside the chat room. I know if you listen, you sent me a video. I can't get to it right now, but you sent me a video of an actual like a documentary on multiplicity. I'm gonna click that onto the archive file. But if you have that available, if you could throw that into the chat room, okay? Some folks are losing sound. We pray the Lord will just preserve all the issues of sound. As far as we have right here, all the sound is working. Everything is absolutely fine on our part. So I don't know what else is occurring. We just hope that you're getting everything faithfully there. So we appreciate that. There's going to come up in the classroom chat room here a link to a video that I saw. Excuse me. Now, it doesn't go into the satanic side so much, but you're going to see individuals who are multiple. On a basic level, they're being engaged by counselors and others. You're going to see them switch and hear them talk in other voices. In one case, I think that there was some demonic stuff going on too in one case, but they didn't deal with that. But I think it's good to see. I think it's good to see. So when you see that up, I'm going to link that to the archives for session number 9 and encourage you to watch that. By the way, don't forget the homework issues. Please read and study The Satan Hunter by Tom Wedge. Please read and study well Secret Weapons by Del Griffiths. Please take a look at some of the foundational books we talked about that I think that are vital. They're not all perfect books, and they all have aspects, but they all help build a better picture in your working with this as a whole. So that's good. Thank you. There is the link in the chat room right now of the, thank you very much. I appreciate that. The hamburgers on me when we get to meet. The YouTube video on MPD, and you're going to watch both men and women, and you're going to see switching. You're going to see little personalities coming out. You're going to see this, so it's pretty interesting. If you need tonight to get a better hearing, we have up to 100 that can call the 347-945-6757. 347-945-6757. By the way, if William Ramsey is listening to this first hour, if you would, send me an email with the number that you're going to be calling in. Reason is, in our queue, we have a lot of numbers in there right now, and I'm not sure which number is yours. So if you'll send me an email with what number you're calling in with, that I can locate you in the queue, and so I don't have to go through 5, 6, 7 others. Under audio, that's point number 4, victim information. Digital recorders. Number 5 under audio, that point there is audio notes on the field when you are out and about. When again, I'm going to say this, when you're asking the Lord, when you're, we've been out in the middle of the field, right where a body was dumped, and, then all of a sudden we found a trail marker on a tree that pointed to the next one and the next. And it was never brought into the law. I mean, we went to law enforcement, 3 different counties, 3 different locations, and we turned over information that they never seen, they never had. And so you want to make audio notes sometimes. When you're done with a victim during the night, you're done with all that's happened and you're going home and other things come to your mind, you can put things down on audio. And that's important too. You can put things on audio. And under audio, this is where number 6 says, for your protection. So I want you to know that you should have digital and also the ability to take pictures, a camera, a phone camera, a little camera, buy a little cheap camera if you have to. And I encourage victims to have this, audio and camera with you all the time. We'll talk about GPS in a few moments. And so that an audio can be clicked on, and so that the information that you're putting in there and the conversations that are being done. For example, with the SRA MPD, you might be talking with 5 other personalities, and the main person doesn't know what's going on, and they're not at the level yet of knowing everything, and you might have to let them hear. You might have information that, again, someone calls and says you're going investigating a certain farm area or wooded area or house or location, and they file complaints. So you have audio information to back up a lot of everything, and ultimately for your protection. And you can always, again, in those little digital recorders, plug it into your computer, download it as a file, make a disk if you want, get it transcribed. They have some of those new programs for Computer Dragon and so forth that they can be transcribed also. You'll get a lot of information that way because things happen rapidly when you're on the field. They happen all over the place, and if you do give your phone number out, sometimes you get phone calls and you want to, you get threats or something, then you want to make sure there's an availability of recording. Point number 3 on that page is filming. Now, 3 things about filming. We're at 789. 3 things on page 95. 3 things about filming. Under point 7 on that page, sites and locations. Sites and locations. The good thing about the computers, with mappings and being able to satellite down, there's an enormous number of things we can do now that we couldn't do back in the 80s. So the idea of filming locations, when we've arrived in some areas where lesser rituals, but nevertheless real rituals were done. Years and years ago, when we didn't have all these facts down of what to do, we were taken to a deep place where we dug up bones, put them in the trunk of my car, brought them back to the university, gave them to the police academy, and they checked them out with another bone specialist from another university local, and acknowledged that they were ritualistically cut into a skull cap, but was not a human skull cap. It had a power cone triangle with precision, into it and so forth. So there's filming. There's filming when you come to sites where there might be blood issues. I mean, here's what occurs. And Tom Dunn brought this up the other day. I think it's Rebecca Township or the Rebecca Chapel, a church or something. He was telling us about this place where all of this satanic stories were going. And 20 years ago, he went there. And lo and behold, they found on the ground the pentagram and so forth. Well, along the way, officers went there. Whole story with one officer telling me this. Officers went there, and they actually drew out the actual symbol and all the symbols that were on the ground. They didn't understand what they were, and that's going to happen a lot. I quit a long time ago trying to memorize all the symbols. I just now take time to look them up when I need to because I got resources. We got 20 books on symbols, and there's just thousands that could be. Is it Santeria? Is it Palo Mayombe? Is it traditional Satanism? Is it Crowlinian? Is it who's doing what? And so you got to sometimes in languages that are written too. Then you have to look that up and decipher. So you might want to because here's what happened with the law enforcement agents. I was just told the other day, they went there, they found all this, they drew it out by hand, they did everything else, and guess what? They went back the next day because there was an engagement with folks there that were close to the site. Well, the officers left. I'm not going to go into all the reasons, but they left. Came back with more folks later. I think it was the next day or the day after. And the entire cemented area where these things, they were sanded. It was all sanded off. It was all removed. I mean, if you find basements and other places, you're going to smell of bleach to get rid of blood issues and all kinds of stuff. You might want to see about if you can get any luminol. I mean, there's a lot of things that you might want to begin to think about if you're really going to get serious into looking at this. And you must always remember, never contaminate a crime scene. Don't move anything. Don't step on anything. Don't touch anything. Take pictures first. Take pictures of everything. If you have any kind of gloves available, you're going to need this. And I want to recommend any kind of criminology course or private investigative course, or if you have a law enforcement friend to tell you what to do, what not to do, because it could be the breaking point when it comes to a case if it comes down to, anybody being caught and dealt with, DNA issues and crime scene contamination issues. So you want to be careful. And so I think audio and filming, on our phones now, incredible. We have these little phones that can do video. You can buy little video things now. I got a camera that costs $89. I can take all kinds of video with sound. So I can be taking video and talking and explaining while I'm taking that video and use that. Dated, by the way, even dated. So it's very important for that to happen too. The question in the classroom is this: what can police academy do? Can they help with forensics like bones? Can they help with analysis, forensic hypnotism? And people will disagree with me, but I'm going to say this: never let anybody be hypnotized. And you don't want to hypnotize SRAs. Some have tried that and it worked a little bit for them, but that's exactly some of the stuff done. And no, this is what you don't want. You don't need this. Our approach is the hand of God, the grace of Christ, the Spirit of God, the charismatic giftings of God, a supernatural approach from a biblical perspective in doing this. That's going to be our approach. People might disagree with that, but that's the approach that we're giving. And all the way through it from beginning to end, redemption, the salvation of lives, the healing, the help, and God being able to show you. Our premise, don't forget the premise, Ezekiel 8, where God willed to take somebody in and show them, step by step by step, more and more and more. He even led them to the perpetrators. So it's clear that God demonstrated his will to do so and his ability clearly. So filming's good. So that's point 7 on the page 95, filming everything and getting pictures and speaking into the recorders if you're doing so. On point number 8, objects. There may be objects that have blackened blood. There may be objects that have DNA, fingerprints. There may be objects that are demonized. There may be objects that have symbols or ritual language or, that identify the type of covenant group. So objects, it could be, we've got stuff like robes and athames and chalices and altar materials and all kinds of stuff. Objects. Matter of fact, we're going to take pictures of objects and we're going to put those up also in the second volume along with some crime scene things. And we're going to put them in there, and then we're going to explain them along the way. We're not going to explain them. You'll have to be in the course because we don't want everything just out there. We're going to explain them for those who are involved. Good point. David says in the Old Testament, he taught my hands to war. Thank you for putting that up. Because in a real sense, you got to realize Israel fought demonized nations. It was all spiritual, but turned into physical. And more you're going to see this. The drug lords across around the world, but coming out of South America. And for those in South America, you know this. Santi Muerte, the Abakwa, the untold numbers of deaths on a cult level, the demon summoned, the demon gods summoned to help. And the drug lords are using that. And there's no question that all real ancient brotherhood, SRA-oriented covens, they know the power, they know the real stuff. And they're into the real stuff. So point number 9 under filming, victims. Let me be very clear when I say this. Victims, don't ever exploit victims. Don't exploit victims and use victims. There's past video, past pictures, things. There's times that, if something is necessary to show to an officer to, save a life or because somebody did get killed or something did happen, that's another story. But engaging, and I've seen this done, and I've seen some really bad stuff done out there where victims are so overwhelmingly manipulated and deliverance goes on and smacking in the head with Bible and all kinds of crazy stuff. So be very careful how you treat victims and if there's filming and if there's approval. That's very important. So I'm going to tell you again, in filming, sites, locations, objects, the languages, the symbols, the areas, the carvings, victims and their testimony at times, because victims will have, sometimes they can be branded with things. They can have objects on them, that kind of thing. And the next thing about filming in cameras is this. Let me tell you one more thing. If you have a camera on you at all times, and even when perpetrators come, so we've had in the past ability to, if they come, to your home ever, or if they try to follow you, victims, we always tell, have a camera, just take pictures of those who are really trying to do this kind of stuff. Surveillance. We'll talk about surveillance here in a few moments, but I'm just going to include tonight that issue of, you might have to film for your protection, film concerning perpetrators coming after you. The last thing is this, under notebooks and files. I cannot tell you, if we go back to the 80s and early 90s, little pieces of scrap paper here, little page here, little things here, things that were confiscated, books of shadows, information, pages given to us. So notebooks and files, point 9 or 10 and 11 on the handwritten under 10, have a lot of handwritten stuff, and 9 was victims, filming victims. Confidentially, with their knowledge. You don't want to just use it and throw it on the web and just they find out later you did that to them. So be I don't care, no one needs to be a sensationalist. You're not doing this to be a sensation. You're not doing this to go viral, okay? I hope that will be something thrown away. But if there's materials, even from victims, we have a victim of a mother, SRA, MPD, that we dealt with heavily, and he remembers ritual stuff. He's already willing. We're going to be videoing him in a discussion. We have a few victims that are going to be willing because we have some work that we're going to put out. But I'm just saying be careful on exploitation and confidentiality issues. You don't want to get anybody harmed either. Under notebooks and files, 10, handwritten, 11, computer. And you might think in terms of encryption. You might think in terms of flash drives that are hidden, that you can, pass off to others. You may think of copies that are put in a bank or given to your lawyer friend or given to other people on your team. Okay? Anybody can tell me what Hebrews 4:13 says? Anybody can tell me what Hebrews 4:13 says? We are going to welcome everybody more and more coming into the class tonight. So again, we are on week number 9. We are on page, now we're going to be turning to page 97. Love it. Thank you, Shane. Appreciate that very much. This is a very important factor. And the truth is, perpetrators don't even like to hear it. But if you think of Bohemian Grove, if you think of the Bilderberger Group, if you think of high places, if you think of ritual sites and all the rest, if you think of the Arliss Perry case at Sanford, at the Memorial Church on the campus, and what happened to her. Here's the fact. Neither is there any creature there is not manifest in his sight. It's basically nothing in all creation is hidden from God's sight. Everything is naked or uncovered and laid open before the eyes of him to whom we must give account. Now, this is important because, like with Cain in the Old Testament, blood cried out. He thought he could hide the crime. Notice how the sin nature mastered him. He went out and he killed his brother, and then he buried him to hide everything. In a lot of these kind of cases, people can be thrown into waters tied to blocks. People could be put through a wood chipping machine. People could be put into before it's taken, put into a casket under the actual real body of another human being that's dead and be buried. There's all kinds of ways that we might talk about in the second half that they get rid of bodies, including cannibalism and other things, grinding down their bones and burning everything. Page 97, some factors on surveillance and tracking down victims. On hour number 3 tonight, we're going to talk about surveillance and tracking down perpetrators. So surveillance and tracking down victims, why? Well, because sometimes after victims come to you, sometimes victims tell us everything in one moment, then we don't see them for 4 weeks. Subpersonalities sent them back to the coven. Or they get abducted back and we don't see them for a while. And that's what law enforcement, agents in the past didn't know, how subpersonalities. I had a federal officer who brought in law enforcement agents to help him do surveillance on his wife. And all they said was, well, it looks like your wife's doing everything. They didn't know about personalities. The personalities were writing old occultic languages on the wall with blood. They tracked it. They found out that blood was bought from a local meat market. It was animal blood. That a lot of this was cult parts that were doing this kind of work. We'll tell you about a lot of this. That's why we mentioned early on that there's going to be disinformation, that some cult loyal parts will take you off on a rabbit trail to lead you away from the real stuff. And you're going to need discernment, you're going to need experience, you're going to need a team, you're going to need prayer. So really quickly here in 10 minutes, surveillance and tracking down victims. What is surveillance? Well, I think that Ezekiel 8 shows us that God led. God knows it all, just like Shane put up Hebrews 4:13. But surveillance can involve audio, it can involve video, it can involve eyes on. We'll talk about 6 points of surveillance in just a moment. But surveillance is just simply, having a means to observe. It's tactical. It's designed. We've done a lot of sitting in cars. We've done a lot of hiding in the woods. We've done a lot of, looking with a telescope or, binoculars, from different locations. We've done things where we've set up guys to cover a different area. We've done a lot of that. And we've caught perpetrators coming to get victims to take them off to a coven. We've caught, and in our own beginnings, there's times, we did the surveillance, but we didn't have a camera. We didn't take a picture. When we started snapping pictures, that really bothered some folks out of Cleveland. Surveillance is all about, plot and plan, tactical observation. What is tracking? Well, surveillance is sometimes more stationary. Where tracking is, you're going 2 places. You're going to one place, to another place, to another place, to another place. You're finding about people and places and things. And so you're tracking information. They gave you information to find about, like we got information about a barn and about a ritual. We got pieces of information from a sub-personality telling what they remembered. And so we went to the area. We actually found the barn. We found the trail back into it. We found the ritualized carcass of an animal. We found a number of other things that brought verification to the victim and what they went through, but it was what they gave us that we began to go and put things together. And, it takes work, though. Tracking. There's times you're going to go through fields. Times you're going to have to dig things up. There's times you're going to have to go into buildings and knock on a door and ask if someone so-and-so works there. There's tracking to professional offices that we have been to and finding individuals. That's what we're doing. And sometimes we can nail things right away. Sometimes we can't. Under that next little section there on page 97, it says, where should we do surveillance of victims? Or why should we do this? Okay. And I'm going to say yes. Number one, for their protection. Surveillance of victims where we've had guys that stayed out with cups of coffee from, 11 o'clock at night till 4 in the morning to keep perpetrators away, to keep sub-personalities from running away. We've done that. So if you do surveillance, it may be for the protection of the victim. Okay? Number two, the exposure of the perpetrators. The exposure of the perpetrators. So you're going to have times where victims are going to say, or a sub-personality is going to say, they're coming for her this week. Or a phone call comes in with just a simple message about, such and such a date, which is usually a ritual date, and it's all about getting them to the place. Now, in the context of satanic ritual abuse and multiplicity, you will have individuals out there, perpetrators, who are watchers and enforcers. Watchers come just to see who's doing what. That's all they do, is to come to watch and observe, reconnaissance. Enforcers may come all the way to the victims to harm them, or come to you and warn you. Okay? Why should we do surveillance of victims? Number one, for their protection. Number two, for the exposure of the perpetrators. And number three, for evidence. If it comes down to it, evidence. If you have a camera on a situation and you see someone coming and they pound on the door and they're telling the person to come on, and you go to engage or stop that, and then they pull out a knife, or they yell at you and say, we're going to kill you and your family, and we're going to kill her if she doesn't come to the coven. Well, if you've done the surveillance and you used a camera in that, a video in that, then you're dealing with evidential stuff now. Okay? those who are, being stalked, stalking issue, gang stalking issues, big, with these issues we need. Now, how do you do surveillance? Let me give you this. We're going to go to 8:35, and then we're going to take a 3-minute break, and we'll bring William Ramsey on about 8:37 tonight. So, William, if you're listening, again, if you could send me your, there you go, appreciate that, I got that now. Just needed your information concerning the phone you're going to call in with, and yeah, good, I got that. Thank you. I will click on that, but it's going to be about 8:37 that we pull you on, because I want to finish this segment before this hour ends, or this time period ends. How do you do surveillance and tracking victims? Number one, eyes on the ground. Nothing can help you better than have people that are, they're there in the area. They're sitting in areas, they're in another place, they're looking out another window, they're in the field, they're on the ground, and their eye, they're looking. They can have audio, they can have video, they can have a cell phone to call instantly. In the past, we used really good, we had some good walkie-talkie type stuff, 50-mile range. We still do. And let me be honest, I can't bring everything out, but try to get some good night vision. If you come to the later training, or if you get into the second course, we might even give out more details. But again, understanding that doing this course the way we're doing it right now, the other side can hear all kinds of stuff. They always want to know what we're going to do. And here's what we learn about their method. As we're getting ready to protect somebody, and there's a ritual going on at some part of town or whatever, and we're going to check it out. They may have a watcher watching your house to be able to call the coven people to say, hey, they're still there, they're over here, and they're watching where you are, and they're following you to inform the coven so that you don't get close, so that you can't find the victim. I can't tell you how many strange and weird things. And we'll do more of this along the way. But number one, eyes on the ground. Okay. Number two, assigned workers that victims are comfortable with, where you put them in the home. At a job area. Have you ever thought about this? Getting some of your team to take a job in a certain company. They're there to have their eyes on the inside. We have somebody that got hired as a maid in a house where a certain room they weren't allowed to go in, not only because of the pornography stuff, but because of the ritual stuff, and because they were involved in ritual issues. So you're going to maybe have assigned workers to areas. Now, what we used to call piggybackers, that's point number 3, under how do you do this, we call them piggybackers. When we are out on the grounds, when we're out doing the stuff, when we're out there in our vehicles, whatever else, guess what we have at times? We have our people following us from a distance. And let me reveal something. I don't know if this is going to be good or bad, but at conferences and other places, I have folks that are in the crowd. We always call them piggybackers because they're piggybacking us. They're our people, our friends, our folks, our team. And when we're going into areas, whatever else, all they are is to piggyback and observe us and watch our backs and see who might be watching or following us. Okay? Number 4, GPS unit. A GPS unit. On a legal basis, we, in some cases, had a victim sign paperwork that would say, I give you the right to do everything necessary to keep me protected and get me out of the coven or cult. So you can imagine the possibility of a GPS unit being put on their car. And all of a sudden, they're gone. You can't find them. They've taken off. A cult part is driven away. Some things have to be done covert. Something has to be done that way. And in that process, on a computer, you can see where they're at. So number 4, you can look into and you can think in terms of GPS units. Okay? Number 5, let me say that in surveillance, you're going to need computer skills, telephone, texting abilities. You know, I used to not like this texting stuff. My daughter can talk to me, look at me face to face, talk to me while with her right hand have her phone, her iPhone, and text and be sending something to somebody. I can text. You know what I have on this new thing I've got? All I have to do is click on, and I can just say what I want to say. It turns it into an audio, text, and I send it. It's a lot faster than me getting my big fingers on a little phone trying to do stuff. Number 6, checkpoints. You know, where you have locations, okay, where you can have checkpoints about, traveling places. If people are going to be following you and you purposely are taking them down this road, down that road, past that building, past this place over there, and then all of a sudden they're coming up, a half mile behind, and you have somebody already located with camera in this building, that building, you're taking them right past, and they're getting, they're being photographed or they're being recorded just like that. So those are some ideas. I only encourage you to take private investigation. If you're really into this, I will recommend a couple private investigative online school stuff, local class things you can do. What I've done over the years, just buy investigative books, buy criminal profiling books, FBI style stuff, law enforcement stuff. I just buy them and I look at them and I read them. Journalistic investigators, investigative journalism. And so I read the content and then I just look at their ideas and adapt it to what I do, what we do. The next thing is this, a note on spiritual surveillance, and we're going to take a break. Spiritual surveillance and the tracking of victims. 3 things you have to do. Mark this down in the workbook on a piece of paper. I guarantee you in this world, this is why law enforcement is sometimes I think they're running circles around law enforcement. Whether you believe this or not, they have the ability through demonic empowerment and through the demons that are in the coven and the demons in the air to have communication spiritually. There are so many times we've engaged individuals and said, we saw you coming from a distance. They do have supernatural abilities, things like clairvoyance and things like this. You think in terms of it's psychic, but it's spiritually empowered. Demons can communicate to other demons. Astral projection can be used to watch the area, that if they see anything, or you can talk about remote viewing. So I'm telling you right now that if you go to a location where there's a real ritual site, you can be sure they've already assigned demons to watch the site and to communicate if anything's happening. And whether you believe this or not, I'm telling you what we know and what we've engaged, and you'll hear victims tell you the same thing. So 3 things under spiritual surveillance and tracking victims. Number 1, bottom of the page, 97. Number 1, this is additional. Cover yourself in prayer. Just cover yourself in prayer and the victim in prayer. Just cover yourself in prayer. Number 2, pray against all the demonic empowerments, demonic things, spirits that are there to watch, objects that spirits may be on. Pray against everything demonically that you're led to pray against. Number 3, pray for the exposure and the bringing down of perpetrators in their areas. We are at 8:35. We are at the end of the first hour, and we're going to bring William, if you can hang on for just about another 5 minutes, we'll be bringing you on. We're going to be in the second hour bringing William Ramsey on. We're going to talk a little bit about Crowlinian ritual stuff, and then we are going to talk also about cases, and hopefully the Perry case a little bit, and take a look at some of this. We'll be coming back here in a few moments, and William Ramsey will be on with us tonight, and we're looking forward to this very much so, taking a look at some of the ritual issues, and then we're going to talk about a cold case that I think he has had interest in also. So you're listening to the Shatter the Darkness, SIIU, the Shatter Intervention Investigative Unit or Team. We just usually call it the team out on the field, but and we've had different workers over the years. We've had a number of ex-officers, some that were active at the time, And so it all depends. And that's why I want to say the best thing is for those who are really committed to this kind of thing, because it's going to have a spiritual cutting edge to all of it. And you're going to have a heart for things, and you're going to have a heart and you're going to a maturity that's going to be, seeing things that you don't like to see. But God took Ezekiel in to see things that were detestable, horrific. Pictures that we've seen in police academies and all the law enforcement that have shown us have been just absolutely astounding to us. So we've been just blown away. We really have been blown away over the years, and we are, once again, just excited to be here tonight doing this on a broader level. Welcome to all those who might be coming in new the second hour. And we hope to, in the future, be able to record all of this a little bit better. I just talked to somebody that is actually here on my grounds. They're listening to this whole program through Blog Talk on their iPhone, and they said they had excellent, sound. So it's pretty amazing to me how it all works. But we'll try to do our best on the tech side along the way and continue to give you and everyone else as much help as possible. So tonight, as we get ready for the second hour, we want to welcome William Ramsey. And I tell you what, if there's a way that God will grant, I'm going to make sure that I get to see him when I'm in California. And I would love to go down to Sanford and take a look at that memorial church and dig into it. I'm going to get to talk to one of the authors of a book, The Ultimate Evil. And we're going to discuss some of this. And I might be able to bring him on down the road also. We're going to see. You got to talk to him first. And listen, glad you're here. If you are someone who's in the world of investigatives, stuff in this area, and you want to talk or, email us, go to shatterthedarkness.net. You'll see a little tab where it says contact. You can do that and contact us. Also, I want to make sure that we have William tell you about his website, the 2 books that he has. And William Ramsey, are you here tonight?
I am. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We're so glad you're here. And William, tell everybody your websites automatically here in the beginning. And just real quickly, tell them about your 2 books. I just received today the book you sent me, so I just now got it today. So I'm looking forward to looking into it in the DVD. So tell them about your books, and that'll give them some insight.
Great. Well, my first book was about Aleister Crowley and his connection to the events of 9/11. It's titled Prophet of Evil. Aleister Crowley, 9/11 and the New World Order. And then I just last year published a book about the West Memphis 3 case, and that's titled Abomination, Devil Worship and Deception in the West Memphis 3 Murders. And those are all available right now on Amazon and Kindle.
Very good.
And, a lot of my information, I've been writing just some additional stuff, and that's on a WordPress site. It's occult911.wordpress.com.
Very good. And we had linked that also on the archives for the last week for folks to have too. So again, if you're listening live tonight but not in the chat room, or if you're listening, again, by a few thousands of you to the archives of this later, please go to the actual SIIU site. You can get to that by going to shatterthedarkness.net. Click on the SIIU site, and then you'll see archives. Click on that. You'll have everything for the last, it's about 10 weeks' worth. We have up to session 8. And there's links, there's books to talk about, there's William Ramsey's books and film that he's done and materials. So please, we gave that assignment last week. I gave that on the archive webpage as homework for all of you who are students, and we want you to make sure they're asking in the chat room. Give the website one more time.
My current website is www.occult911.com and also occult911.wordpress.com. That's my blog where I have some additional articles and just postings.
Great. I'm looking in the chat room here. We call it the classroom. Some say they already got it on Kindle. That's great. I've got it on Kindle, and now I got both of them in hardback too. So, listen, I appreciate your work, appreciate what you're doing, and tonight we're going to talk a little bit about the Crowley background and ritual stuff, and then we want to jump into the Perry case a little bit, if that's okay.
Great.
Just to talk about it, because I want folks to be able to, some of the cases we're going to, in the next 9 weeks that we're going to do, we're going to be giving assignments to some cold case issues to see what people can, discover, look into, and get a hold of. And thank you for in the chat room. We've got folks that have put up your cult911wordpress.com link, and appreciate that too. Tonight, let's begin with talking about some of the, thank you for the thing that you sent me, Crowley's rituals. And maybe you can talk about a few of those.
Sure. Like Crowley was basically a ritual magician. After he graduated from Cambridge, he was a member of the Golden Dawn, like we talked about last week. And that was their primary interest was ceremonial magic. They had very ornate, ritualized ceremonies that they would have they took place in a Masonic temple in London. So, the Masonic temples are typically organized kind of like on a north, south, east, west axis. It's, very pagan kind of layout. Well, they did all their rituals there. Crowley learned those rituals and then devised rituals of his own after he left, basing a lot of his stuff on all the information that was compiled in the Golden Dawn. And he practiced his rituals whenever he was traveling. He was kind of like a traveling magician. And he was a fastidious recorder of all of his magical workings. He encouraged himself and his followers to keep detailed magical books so that they could be referenced and studied by other people. And so all of his stuff is available for review. And, he had of the ones that he did, the records are there. He did the Bramlin operation in Bulliskin Manor in Scotland in 1900. There was an Abeldee's working. Now, a working is like something that takes place over time. They're not just one-day magical rituals. Like some of these lasted 2 weeks. Some were, arduous, long rituals. But he also, so he wrote and kept notes on all these types of workings. There was another Paris working in 1914, the Alamantra we talked about last week in 1918. He also devised these other rituals that members of the OTO, of which Crowley was head from 1925 till his death in 1947, still practice today. One that they practice a lot is called the Gnostic Mass, and it's based upon, believe it or not, Eastern Christian rituals. The ornate kind of Russian-style Christian rituals. It was pulled from that after Crowley saw one when he was in Russia, and that includes the Stela of Revealing, which is what happened with Crowley in 1904 in Cairo when he saw the Stela 666 at the Bulaq Museum, which is now the Egyptian National Museum. That's included in the Gnostic Mass, and that's supposed to be done by all these OTO members, I think once a month. But, there was all kinds of other rituals that were recorded. We were lucky to have as a record somebody who saw one of Crowley's rituals when he was at his magical temple at the Abbey of Thelema, and that's in my book. A person by the name of Betty May recorded it, and it's pretty amazing to, have her relate exactly what happens in these rooms, how the floor is painted, and there are ritual implements like knives and goblets, braziers, and it involved the animal sacrifice. It involved the killing of a cat. So, you can kind of get an insight to what happens in these rituals, and that they were happening, 100 years ago. So, these things do happen. So, I think that Crowley's ritual history is very detailed and ornate, and clearly indicates he was trying to receive and obtain information from evil spirits, demons. He did not see them as demons. He called them the gods. He looked to them for information, and he wrote it down and then would try to analyze it. So he would typically be working with he would be doing the ritual working, and he would have a scribe. It seems to be a standard kind of practice, somebody doing the magical working and somebody writing it down. And, it's pretty interesting. And he had that lamb experience, which is the gray alien Alamantra in the Alamantra working of 1918. And it's kind of the infamous drawing that he wrote that looks exactly like, what a UFO looks like today. And he had other ones. I mean, he was instructed by another being he called the Wizard to write a book. It was called Book 4, which is out there, which is, essentially magical guide, all under the direction of an evil spirit, and then the Book of the Law as well by Awa, a being he called Awas, who, as I kind of detail in my book, he prayed to all the time. That was his chief god, and he revealed later on in his life that Awas was a blind or a code word for what we call the devil or Satan. But, he didn't use those terminologies. He inverted everything, so it's kind of confusing. Crowley can be really confusing because when he says Lord, he's talking about his Lord, the devil. So, it's, when you come, at least for me, coming from a Christian background, I just immediately think, he's talking about Jesus Christ or something like that. But anyway, so Crowley, was a ritual magician, and he did tons of rituals, and he's the foundation for a lot of what's happening now, and so many people were influenced by him. I just am getting started. I just finished this week a visual study about Crowley that'll be up on Kindle and on iBookstore and on Amazon in 2 weeks, and it's got a lot more visual information, so people can take a look at that. And I'm getting to work on a book of about his followers, the disciples of him and of Crowley, and how many there are. I think people will find very interesting and surprising that so many people are. I'm sorry?
Astounding, because now with all of his books that have been out and been around the world in other languages, I meet kids that are 19. I meet kids that are 17 that have the Crowley-oriented tarot cards. They have books they're reading. And if as you've said, and I've read too, where it's the spirits, these beings that he considered gods, that actually guided him in the writing. So in our view, it would be Didache Daimonoia, the actual spirit-inspired writings. So we're reading materials that demonic empowerment or beings. And so I watch sometimes, and I just shake my head, at old border stores and places where 17-year-old girls will get a hold of books and 19-year-old guys will get a hold of his books. And I've met young men that were very versed. I mean, let's say reading everything they could on Crowley, let alone, and I'll ask you here in a few moments about the rock and roll connection, but just on a subjective level too, William, what do you think of the spiritual power? Do you really see that he had real powers?
He seemed to have manifested real powers. People had seen him do things like mind reading. That he was definitely able to hypnotize people. He seemed to manifest some powers, and he also, he was clearly, a writer for these demons. So that was another power. But I think that he was able to. I mean, his output was incredible. He said that he would get charged up by these rituals, and that would be his inspiration to, write more books. I mean, he has his published writings, although they're not, I guess popular, they are voluminous. I mean, it's no biographer of Crowley has actually gotten their hands wrapped around all of his writings because he wrote so much under different names and in so many different places. So he really, and he said himself, these books just came out of the blue. So, he had these books called the Holy Books, which were truly unholy books that were also received. So I do think that he had some powers, and, he predicted these upheavals with, he might have gone back and re-edited his, but he wasn't very honest, but, these if the historical record that he wrote is correct, he had some very interesting things to say about World War I, World War II, and about the eventual manifestation of the Antichrist in the future. Like he had a ritual where he said he saw the enthronement of Satan on the earth, and so as far as like overt powers, I don't know if anybody ever really saw that, but he definitely had power and a magnetic personality over his followers and other people.
Absolutely. And I agree with you there. I think he did really have the real stuff down, and maybe even we don't have everything out. There's a ritual I read about where he did with his son, and his son died. Can you tell us about that?
Well, I'd heard about that. He had like 4 or 5 children, and there was supposed to be a rumor. There were lots of rumors about Crowley. One was that he had done a ritual with his son, but I could never verify that. For all the stuff that I've read, which is pretty much all the biographies there were about Crowley, I could not verify that. I also couldn't verify that he ended up in a mental institution in the late 30s in Switzerland, but it was talked about by one of his friends, Dennis Wheatley, and another kind of somebody in that kind of cultural arena by the name of Anais Nin, who was kind of a diarist, but she said that they both said that he was in an institution, and I mean, it's believable, but I never could verify that story or the story about his son.
Well, there was, the ritual stuff that he did in Scotland, and then in New York what was the ritual that was done in New York City? That was
I think the Alamantra working. That's
right.
It's pretty well recorded. It was a long working. I think it was over a number of weeks, and he recorded the whole thing. It's actually required reading, whereas one of the books within the OTO manual. Actually, it took place in the early part of 1918. It involved his Scarlet Women. These women that he would have that would help him do his rituals. And it's a recording of his visions. Mm-hmm. And, it's just full of kind of, he was very much into the Kabbalah, so words and numbers. Words had numerical meaning, so he was always breaking things down. He was continually throwing the I Ching, which are these sticks that, are supposed to provide people with insights. And he was always throwing the I Ching, something that Timothy Leary would do as well, and it was a working where he was definitely in contact with the discarnate spirit, and trying to get answers.
Right. Tell us, William, about the cross of a frog. Tell us about that ritual.
Well, the cross of the frog is probably one of the most sacrilegious things I've ever read, and it clearly verifies Crowley was a Satanist, I think, objectively, and it is the mockery of, it's really just a mockery of Christianity. I don't really want to go into detail, but it's really very nasty, and it involves a crucifix and a frog that, operates as a symbol, and some of the statements that he says are, unbelievable, kind of like what he said in The World's Tragedy, which was a book some of his followers hoped nobody outside of, people in the coven or the group would ever read, just sacrilege and evil on a really clear, level that, it's not disputable. Yeah. A lot of Crowley's followers will deny it or try to move you away from that book, Cross of a Frog, but it's clearly part and integrated into Crowley's, new religion.
Right. Very antichrist, very an abomination as far as we would consider it. It's interesting, the idea of frog, because in the book of Revelation, in the end, when it comes to Armageddon, the beast, the dragon, the false prophet, out of their mouth come spirits that look like frogs. And that's an association with old demon gods anyway, so pretty interesting that they would connect what might be an old ancient demon god symbol with the cross and the abominable things they did. We got a question.
And that's interesting. Just to add to that, one of the things about Crowley and a lot of Satanists is they really like the Book of Revelations, but in a reverse sense. They like the fact of, they like the dragon, the false prophet, the beast. Crowley's and the Scarlet Women, like Crowley emulated that in his own life, where he called himself the beast, and his paramour of the time, whoever it was at that time, they came and went frequently, was the Scarlet Woman.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how that plays out. Even today they have these kind of like ritual relationships, and in that movie with Johnny Depp, The Ninth Gate. Johnny Depp is the Beast, and he has a Scarlet Woman. It's pretty shocking.
Exactly. Pretty shocking. Well, we have a question in the classroom here. It says, why do Crowley and his followers use the name, the Hebrew name Yahweh, and Archangel Michael protect and bind demons during summoning?
Well, those are, I think, from my reading and my understanding, is those are parts of old rituals that they would draw on the ground. Like if somebody was going to come, try to raise a spirit, they would write that and then stand outside of that protective circle. The entity wasn't supposed to be able to pass through that circle. And that was kind of pre-Crowley. I think the guy's name was Waite, Book of Black Magic and Pacts. That was kind of what was the ritual magic of the 19th, 18th century, is my understanding. And Crowley actually used that. There was another ritual he did in the desert of Algeria. It was an oasis of Abu Sada, I think it was, where he summoned the demon Choronzon, the demon of the abyss, and had a conversation with it. Victor Newberg was his scribe. And apparently that protective circle that had the names of the archangels got, according to Crowley, now we only have Crowley to retell the story, but that was broken and the demon attacked Victor Newberg. And that's all retold. So that's like even another ritual. Crowley was emulating the old rituals of John Dee and Edward Kelly. At that time they were going through the different dimensions, or the term he uses is Aethers. It's Aethyrs.
Wow. Well, we have any connection concerning Crowley and Kenneth Anger, the filmmaker?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Kenneth Anger was really just a disciple of Crowley, one of the followers who did all his rituals. He integrated Crowley's imagery and occult imagery in all his films. He has, the name Lucifer tattooed on his chest. He, there's all kinds of odd UFO imagery in his movies, and so Kenneth Anger traveled with, and I think we talked about this last week, is he traveled to Crowley's Magical Abbey with Alfred Kinsey and took pictures and was really interested in that, and he's been kind of carrying the torch for Crowley ever since, and he's still alive. They actually had a retrospective on Anger at the Hammer Museum here in L.A., and you can look it up online, where he talks a lot about Crowley, and he's just shows how knowledgeable he is about him. He actually made a movie with a lot of Crowley's artwork in it that you can see out there. It's called A Man We'd Like to Hang, and I think that you can look it up on YouTube, A Man We'd Like to Hang, and that's actually a title of, after Crowley got booted out of Italy, a periodical called John Bull wrote an article titled A Man We'd Like to Hang, and that's also in my book. You can read that if you're inclined.
Okay, great. Let me ask you concerning Crowley and some of the rock stars out of Led Zeppelin and other places. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that from my reading of Jimmy Page, he's definitely a member of the OTO, for sure. I have that verified. I didn't know that at the time. So he's a member of Crowley's Secret Society. He bought Crowley's Boleskine Manor, where he did the Abramelin working that I just talked about in 1900. So he is I think he was the owner, and then he sold it, and then he bought it back. But and he really was a collector, a fine art collector of all of Crowley's stuff. So he bought Crowley's wand, he bought Crowley's ritual implements like his cloak or his ceremonial garb. He bought as much as he could, and actually during that time he was purchasing Crowley's stuff at these auction houses, kind of like Sotheby's. He ran into Kenneth Anger, who also had an interest in that stuff, and they had a relationship working together on one of Kenneth Anger's movies called Lucifer Rising. And Jimmy Page was supposed to write the music, and they had a falling out, but also involved in that project was a member of the Manson family by the name of Bobby Bouzoulet, who ended up getting caught for killing Gary Hinman in Topanga Canyon here in L.A. And so you just see the the undercurrent or current of Satanism is there, and a lot of these people are more connected than the police. The police seem to realize at that time. Maybe they did, but from my reading, they didn't really see them all as connected. Actually, Anger and Bouzoulet lived together at a place, kind of a famous building in San Francisco they called the Russian Embassy.
Now, is there any connection with Crowleyism, any of his stuff, with the Eyes Wide Shut movie?
Well, I think so. I think that the ritual elements are there, with the Hierophant and the masks and the kind of Illuminati stuff. Whether there is any overt, I didn't see any. I haven't studied the movie in a while, but I did recognize there are some process stuff, and a lot of the process guys, the original process guys, were influenced by Crowley and read Crowley, and were actually ex-Scientologists, so they were influenced by L. Ron Hubbard, who was a disciple or follower of Crowley. So there's a connection between to Crowley, to L. Ron Hubbard, to the process, to Eyes Wide Shut, for sure.
Wow. Now, when we talk about Crowley, and then because I want to connect it, with his stuff with the process, and then we want to move from there maybe to the one case anyway, to kind of begin to dig in and let all the folks and students and others know there are cold cases out there, even ones that we have locally, that have never been solved, that have been completely satanic-oriented, ritual-oriented, and bizarre. So give us a connection between Crowley, maybe, and the Process Church.
Okay, well, the Process Church was founded by a guy by the name of Robert Moore. He changed his last name to de Gernston, and then his girlfriend at the time, and they were offshoots from Scientology. They created this apocalyptic, odd religion that was totally novel. It was the basic structure is that there are four different gods: Yahweh, Lucifer, Satan, and Christ, and they're manifesting something to come together for the final judgment. So, and the process members were to work towards the final judgment, but not in a good way, but to hasten it, the apocalypse. And the members, and it's a really convoluted set of doctrines, but from what I understand, that they could manifest any elements of those archetypal gods, so they could be, Christ and, Lucifer or Satan at the same time. And they were the followers. There was a book that just came out recently and one of the process members let out some information, but the guy's name is Robert Wiley. The book is Love, Fear, Sex, and Death, and you can read about, how they were almost like Crowleyites. They were listening to what they called the entities or the beings who told them to go certain places, and set up these magical environments where they would learn telepathy and all these magical skills. And it's interesting how that conforms to some things you've said in the past about the chosen. The process members are known as the chosen amongst themselves, and they also refer to themselves as the family. And that's kind of, and when you look at the process and what they were up to in their times of, that they're at their apex, probably in the late 60s, early 70s, it conforms to Charlie Manson and what he was saying and doing. He had his family. He believed he was the Christ and also, Satan. And a lot of those doctrines clearly, manifested themselves in the Manson family. But, as far as Wiley said, and he said it openly in some things that I've seen online, and he's still around. So the process rebranded after all the heat they got after Manson and everything like that. But Wiley openly says that they all read Crowley. So they know of him. They just kind of used him as a basis. And a lot of those, there was all kinds of odd process murders that were taking place through California. I mean, the Manson family killings, which was definitely an offshoot of the process and the OTO, Manson was all over the place. He was at Esalen, which is kind of a New Age community out here in California. He was a member of the he was known to be at Solar Lodge meetings, which was an OTO, Oasis. But there were a lot of other unsolved occult murders that they couldn't pin on the family or anybody else, but clearly these guys were going around, and you know, the guy who wrote The Ultimate Evil, Maury Terry, that talks about the Arliss Perry case, he you know, goes into a lot of these other odd events that, you know, connects all these people together, the process and stuff like that. That Berkowitz was a process member, and the Son of Sam killings. And so that ties into, you know, this Arliss Perry situation and some of these other people. There was another murder of a guy by the name of Roy Radin, R-A-D-I-N. It was a Cotton Club murder. It's known as the Cotton Club murder, but that's a Hollywood murder that this guy who they think was involved in the Arliss Perry murder, Richard, I think his name is Metzger, was like an occult, you know, he was seen as like this occult superstar, and he was known to be a member of the process here in L.A., so it's really convoluted, but there's a lot of stuff people are still looking into and trying to figure out from that era.
Right. Well, the weird thing now is Son of Sam, the Berkowitz thing, and my take on him, and I don't know this for sure, but an observation and looking over the years is that he was multiple. And I wonder whether the process has that capacity to deal with, because I know they deal with a lot of the mind control issue, but I wonder about the multiplicity there. So let's jump then over to the process then in connection to and I was reading your article that you did here. I have a web page, I think it's beforeitsnews.com, and you did a great, I think this is the one that you did anyway that I'm reading, job of bringing some insight again, you know, to this. This is how long ago did you write this article here? It looks like not too long ago.
Yeah,
right?
Probably in the last 3 months. There was a lady who contacted me. She's involved in the Zodiac killings. She's a researcher for that, and she was going through the occult elements in the Zodiac. I don't know if you're familiar with that murder, but those were unsolved murders that took place in San Francisco around the same time. And there was it's just laden with occultism. It's probably one of the great occult unsolved murders with all kinds of cryptic ciphers and stuff like that. But she reached out to me and asked me questions about Crowley because of my book. And the thing that kind of, I grew up in Palo Alto, so I was familiar. I'd known about the Arliss Perry, murder, and it was just kind of something that was whispered about. But she asked me to write an article, and so this was the article that I wrote. And the thing about this Arliss Perry death there's tons of occultism, but one of the odd things is that Crowley in his system had a feast for, they called it the Beast and his Scarlet Woman. That was for his birthday. It was October 12th, 1875, and some of the OTO still celebrates Crowley's birthday as the prophet of the new aeon, and that's when Arliss Perry was murdered, was 99 years to the day after Crowley's birth.
Amazing. Now, with Arliss, let's give a little background to her, because it's kind of strange. She came from North Carolina, and maybe, was she running away from cult activity? Was she leaving because she found things? Give us a little background about her, and then when the murder occurred, how they found the body, and then what the implications were behind that. Sure.
Well, Maury Terry did some great research on her. He ran into her story after researching the Son of Sam, but there was a connection to the Son of Sam with a group in North Dakota. And Arliss Perry was from North Dakota. She was by all accounts, clean-cut, ardent Christian who, the rumor was that she had bumped into a cult group, and she witnessed to them. And so, this is a warning to everybody to be very careful, but something happened, and somebody might have followed her to Palo Alto. She followed her fiancé to Stanford. He was studying sociology or psychology, and so she was 19 years old, and she was known to frequent the church, but somebody had come, and she had just gotten a job as a receptionist at a law firm. And I actually know, I have close personal friends who worked at that law firm for years, for decades actually. And somebody had saw some man come in and talk to her before the murders, and then people from the law firm saw this guy. So somebody was talking to her. She was, then killed on I think it was, if I recollect, it's October 12th, 1974. And at the funeral, some people from the law firm said, hey, they saw this guy, who was supposed to be there, and they said, that's not her husband. And the police were like, what do you mean, that's her husband? And it says, well, that's not the person who came and saw her at the law firm. So there's a mystery person that the police have never determined who it was who was talking to her and had come to the law firm. So it seems for me, to me, that she was lured to the church on that date for one reason or another, and that's really unknown to investigators. And so she, was pretty, it was a horrific murder. It was rumored that she was put onto the actual central altar and that her body was moved to preserve the sanctity of the church. But one of the interesting things about another occult element of her death was that her legs and her pants, which were removed, were put out in the sign of kind of the Masonic compass and square, so that there was the upward-facing triangle and the lower-facing triangle. And that is a pretty intense, element of occultism. It runs through, all this, the six-pointed star, the universal hexagram of Crowley, and it represents male and female. It represents all kinds of stuff in kind of ceremonial magic and occultism. And it's interesting that also in the Tate LaBianca murders, Lino LaBianca was one of the other people who were killed by the Manson family. He actually had the same symbol carved into his stomach, and it's like something that's not really, at least from my understanding, it wasn't emphasized by the researchers into the Manson family, that kind of occult element, and but it's clearly there, and so you can see that in the article that I wrote.
Sure. Now, the connection between Son of Sam, I read where he claimed in writings that he did, or maybe Moriarty found these writings where he claimed that she was, they came after her, they stalked her, and they killed her.
Correct.
Do you know about that?
Well, that's what he said, and he, he recanted. I mean, he became a Christian. He saw everything in the spiritual element for what it was. But he does not. He stopped talking about a lot of stuff due to threats, and so, but he definitely revealed a lot of stuff in his writings that Moriarty seemed to, uncover. So, and he just followed. Moriarty just followed the trail, and it led from the Son of Sam to this killing Arliss Perry.
Now, do you believe that Process Church was involved?
I think the Process Church was involved in the Son of Sam, and I think that somebody, maybe in the Process Church or some other occult group, was involved in the Arliss Perry murders, yes.
Okay. The Process Church, can you tell us a little bit about that at all?
Well, it's just kind of like what I to disclose, like the fundamentals and their ideas, and they dressed in interesting garb, and they would go out on the street and hand out information back in the 70s or 80s. After the Manson family, they rebranded and became what's called the Foundation, and then they changed, and I think one of the founders passed away. Robert Dick Grimston became Robert Moore again. He changed his name, and then they moved to Utah and started a shelter for animals. And a strange change. They they still seem to be around, and I know for a fact there's this one guy. His name is Genesis P. Orridge. Is a long-term process member. He wears process rings, and he actually has a kind of tie-in to the West Memphis 3 case, because he was seen in the company of kind of the central character with the West Memphis 3, Damien Echols, and they clearly are birds of a feather. But so they're still around, and they're still writing books, just like that I said, that Love, Fear, Sex, Death by Robert Wiley. You can read about that. He obviously doesn't disclose everything, but tells quite a bit about what they're up to. And this other guy, Genesis Origin, and you see that kind of in the process, very aggressive anti-Christian sentiment, real bloodthirsty. I mean, real aggressive. I mean, it's the process is about as dangerous as it gets, and it's an underground that's still out there. And just to kind of verify what you were talking about earlier in the first hour, what I overheard about the Watchers, the silent Watchers, in the West Memphis 3 case, there are definite process members who are silently watching people trying to get to the bottom of what happened and how things went wrong. I mean, these 3 guys were guilty as I mean, they were just guilty. They were found guilty twice at law. But, people were shocked when they got out, but they didn't understand the occult elements of that crime, and they were actually led away from it. But since the head guy has moved to Salem, Massachusetts, there's been another guy by the name of, let's see if I can recollect his name. He's a known process member and associate of Genesis Origin, who's been on these posting boards mocking people trying to investigate the case. I mean, it's very dangerous. He signs his stuff telepathically yours, which is a process hint because that's what they learn. Their first, kind of practices is try to read each other's minds and stuff like that. But gosh, I can't remember his name right now. But he's definitely. I mean, there's pictures of him with other process members back in the day. He was in a band called the Psychic Youth, or and that's. Yeah, so
right,
anyway.
Youth.
So it's out there. They're out there, just like you said.
Right. We're going to maybe do a night just on that alone. Let me give you a few questions, and then I wanted folks to know, because already questions are coming up concerning the West Memphis 3. You're going to come back next week, correct, and do just West Memphis 3. Okay. Sure. Just so everybody knows, it's in the classroom right now, because your questions are coming up about that. We're going to have you hold that off till next week so we can focus tonight. So next week, if I can have William back on, we'll have him on for 2 hours, okay?
Sure. I can do
and we're going to jump deep into the West Memphis 3 case, because I watched the films that came out afterwards. I saw Johnny Depp down and all the rest go down, and they were all trying to say they're not guilty and so forth. So I know a law enforcement agent that was there was down there that did the backdrop to it. I was just with him a couple days ago. And not only does he believe that they're guilty, but there's more connections. And as you heard tonight, William Ramsey is bringing up even more connections to that case. So let's focus on the West Memphis case next Tuesday night, and we'll spend 2 hours digging into that. I know it's going to drum up some responses overall, but let me give you the other questions that are in the queue right now. Are you ever affected by the research you do? Do you ever have any kind of demonic fight or, spiritual warfare attacks?
Not much. I mean, I feel more like there's definitely a lot of resistance out there. And so I feel like I stay in the spirit and, put on the full armor and try to avoid that. So, and if I get scared or anything, like last week I said, I just pray a lot and get out my Bible. And but I definitely believe there's spiritual warfare, and at the first hint of anything, I just go back and pray and read, and I feel, there's definitely some moments of fear there. I definitely feel that, but I also feel like, it's a story that needs to be told, and I feel responsible to let blow the horn so that people will know that this danger really does exist. It's not like something that's to the side of where we should be looking at. It's very important. These are very, very dangerous people. And I really tremble for the people in Salem who are being around this guy Damien Eccles. And, I mean, he is if you read the book, the guy's demon-possessed. He's gone on night journeys with demons. He had this one demon called Rosie who whispers in his ear and gets in bed with him. That's what he wrote. It's blood-chilling. It's incredible.
Sure.
And they let him out of jail. We can talk about it next week. But,
I know.
Anyway, it's really, really bad. But
we're
as far as demon possession, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're going to open that can next week for sure. Question that's in the classroom is, Is Johnny Depp a member of the Process Church?
I can never confirm that, but I was researching Depp, and I got to a point where I didn't know about the supporters. When I first started reading about the case, I just thought they were all dupes. I mean, I honestly did. I actually, when I first heard about them being released, I thought that something was wrong with the court. So I just assumed, okay, they must have got out. And then, I figured out what really happened in the actual timeline of the legal timeline. But there are some people involved in that case that know they're guilty, and it's really dark. And Depp is his association. You can just go watch the ninth. You could probably do a show on the Ninth Gate with Polanski and Depp. And Polanski, it goes right back to the process and right back to these satanic occult crimes. Polanski's, his fingers are all over the cult. And that whole thing that happened at Cielo Drive with Manson, there was one big coven. Everybody there was involved in Satanism. Those were not innocents. That was not random. If you look back and look at Sebring and Folger and Frykowski, all these guys were involved in drugs, and there's all types of stories and rumors about them all doing magical stuff. So anyway, the Depp has you can just go back and look at his movies. It's
yeah.
So I don't have any proof whether he's a member of the group.
Right, and I think maybe we'll take an extra, if you could stay on an extra hour, we'll deal with some Johnny Depp stuff, because I've got some stuff from the law enforcement side and others that know where he came from, Echelon, the kind of a New Age society, kind of a mind control society, his connection to Hunter Thompson. And I think it's Paul Kotz that is now the owner of the Skeptic magazine, but has a deep occult background also. So we're going to look more into all of that next week, too. But here's a few more questions quickly that come up. Do New Agers revere Crowley as prophetic in their movement?
Well, I think so. I think to a certain extent. Crowley had so many facets because he was really well-read, and he really was a scholar. He was erudite on all aspects of the occult. And so I think that New Agers, if they don't get too deep into Crowley and they see him as this kind of liberator of the human spirit, I do think that people can see what they want to see from him, And so to New Agers, he is kind of a new, and he thought of himself as a New Age. He used the term New Aeon, which is it's the same as the age, but he believed in an aeon connotes kind of a cosmic shift, not just like a different millennium or something, but like aeon is like a spiritual shift, I guess. So, I think that there's some bleed over.
And he believed he was bringing a new era or new aeon and a shift in, right?
Yeah, he wanted to bring he called it the age of Aeon of Horus as opposed to the Aeon of Osiris, and Osiris was his symbol for the dying god, or kind of the Christian era, and Horus is the one-eyed hawk god of Egypt, which the one eye of Horus is like symbolic of the eyes, Lucifer.
Right. Question comes in: do you cover William Sims Bainbridge in some of your works or sites?
Williamson Bain. It sounds familiar. I don't. What's
that? I don't know myself. So maybe that. William Sims Bainbridge. I'm not offhand. Okay. Do you have? Let me see. Have you done 6 to 9 months of research in the case? Correct. Did you find anything else about other cults that were in West Memphis?
Oh yeah. I think we can talk about it next week. But clearly, the perps were connected, and there's so many. If you go back and look through the court, one of the benefit things that gave me a lot of lucid understanding of the case is that there's so many police records that are available to read, and all the stuff that was collected by the police is there, and all the interviews they did, and the affidavits and the signed affidavits. So there's multiple stories that confirm these guys are networked.
Well, here's some good information in the classroom here. Bainbridge, that we just mentioned, they're saying, conducted a 5-year ethnographic study of the Process Church. His scientific study was later published under the title Satan's Power, a deviant psychotherapy cult. I'm going to have to get that and take a look at that. Have you heard of that work?
I do. Now it comes to mind. Yeah, it's definitely out there.
Okay, good.
I can try to find a copy for you. I know that's at UCLA, so maybe I'll go out and get a copy and ship you one.
Oh, great! Thank you very much. Any other things that you want to bring in tonight? Anything else you want to just bring out tonight about Crowley rituals, the Arliss case? I mean, do you look into the Arliss case at all? Like you want to see if you can find out some new clues?
Well, I think that there just the occult element is there. It's clear to me that because of the date, the way her body was displayed, the connections to the son of Sam, I think that and there were so many other occult cold cases, the Zodiac that were happening right around that time, and it's kind of interesting how. And so many, even in a global sense, there's so many of these things where there are occultists who prey on, I don't know what the connection is, but it's young couples at night, whether it's the occult killings that took place in Tuscany. It's The Beast of Florence. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's a really good book by Preston, Preston, and there's like all kinds of occultism that took place there. And Gerald Gardner based a book, his work on the witches of the 19th century in Tuscany, and this thing, the Son of Sam, and the Zodiac, which is and there's actually a couple other occult cases that took place in Northern California that are similar to the Zodiac, where they're still unsolved. So I think that there's definitely a lot of unsolved occult cases out there, and I Arliss Perry is really one of the scarier ones.
What about the connection to the Black Dahlia?
That's another one that's unsolved. That clearly is very odd. I mean, she was drained of blood, and that to me, it reeks of occultism for me. I would like to reread stuff about that. I'm sure that there would probably be some interesting things people didn't look at. It's also about how people look at information. Some people, if they don't believe occultism exists, they'll just gloss over that information when reading through case material or information. So, it's really a matter of, how people perceive things, or whether they want to see them or whether they can see them. So, a lot of those cases that are in the past, they're certainly, and it goes back to like Jack the Ripper. Jack the Ripper, to me, also has all kinds of occult elements to it and Masonic stuff,
right.
But they just saw it as random murders.
Yeah, and that's the trouble, again, when I was brought into law enforcement stuff. The truth is, there are a lot of good guys that we met, a lot of good law enforcement guys that wanted to do things, but like with gang language and things, they didn't understand symbols and signs and things, and sometimes they just threw things away. They didn't understand the cult motivation. I mean, there's always what's the motive for the killing, and so when you have the candle issues, you have the way Arliss Perry's legs were put. You're dealing with a high ritual symbol, and there's no question that it was. And she wasn't sexualized because the belief was that they weren't. That was not something they were permitted to do. So that's a case that whether process or at least in that vein of things, because that to me, like what I deal with is they call the underground brotherhood. But see, there's so much of the process that looks the same, and they've gone really deeply underground, and I wonder whether or not they're into the multiplicity side too. Because all chosen ones that we talk about, they gain the ability for telepathy, astral projection, and the rest. Question comes into the classroom one more time here. Did you find it odd that the investigation did not start with the family and work its way out?
Well, I think that Arliss Perry, they did, but they asked the husband. I mean, there was something weird that happened with the husband, too. Like
he had blood on something.
Yeah, he had blood out on his nose, and he claimed that when he got stressed, his nose bled. So that was kind of odd. And he also discounted any of the occult elements, which was odd, particularly for, somebody who you should have known, might have known what she was up to, or I thought that was peculiar. But they did seem to the police seemed to remove him as the suspect. Typically, it would be the husband, but they had an argument that night, is my understanding from reading that, and then he had gone home. So I don't know. I mean,
right, and that's where they needed to look there. But again, it says anyway they discounted him. And here's some questions we can throw in. If back then she was multiple, if back then she was part of that whole thing to where they had to take her out because she may have begin to come out and tell, and if he was because he then began to write on and speak out concerning satanic panic and kind of
right.
I mean he came out heavy against the satanic stuff, almost as though someone like the false memory syndrome, people on that side of the fence could have, he was that adamant against the satanic side, which was kind of insane for the way she was positioned, the candle that was in her hands between her breasts, the candle that was inside of her private parts sticking out. I mean, anybody reads this, the crime scene, and I've got some stuff to show you that I got from a friend that I talked to you about, that nobody has seen yet, and you'll be very interested in this stuff because that case I think can be looked into again and looked at in a different way now. And so I mean it's just a matter of how do you investigate when it comes to if there was multiplicity, if there was the underground in that fashion, and I would love to just really dig into the husband to say how could you come out so adamantly against the occult side of all this and all of satanic panic stuff when
right.
It was clear
and
that it was
that's an excellent point. I mean, it's very unusual. It sounds like he's protesting too much. Like he should just say, well, maybe it's there, instead of being in full denial. So, and from my experience with just doing research on by myself, I've seen so many people, and we talked about it last week, just like flat out lie, even though they're involved in it. So, it's just like this guy from the West Memphis 3. He denies he's involved in occultism, and that's all he does.
Exactly. Well, and we'll talk about his tattoos, satanic tattoos, his connections, and how deep that goes. I would encourage everyone tonight to get a hold of William Ramsey's book. We had the website up. We have the books listed on it's called the archives page of this cult crimes class that we're doing. So if you take a look down there on that for the week 8, you'll see where we encourage you to look at the films also. I've been looking at the films, www.occult911.com and then /products, or just go to there and just go through the whole area. Look at the films that Williams put out, and again, you're going to see some really detailed, specific work that we like that has verification, and going in there after the verification. And we hope that you'll get a hold of the books, whether Kindle or whether hardback or softback, paperback. Please do. If you are involved in the overall issues of research and you want to, and if you're law enforcement, this is what happened back in the 90s. All across the nation, law enforcement agents began to be trained by people like Tom Wedge and all the others that were out there showing, the signs, the symbols, the candles, the mode of operation, the MO, and so forth. So that's important in all of this, and we'll dig into more of the Memphis case next week. Anything else to share tonight, William? Anything you want to get across?
Well, I just think that this is really, for me, like just the Arliss Perry is the tip of the iceberg. We could I have some books here about occult cases that have been unsolved where, I could definitely get that information over to you. I wish I could find it on my bookshelf right now, but there are a lot of other ones that are out there, and I think that in my book you'll find, and some, there's other just for next week, there's other cases that are similar to the West Memphis 3, and we can talk about that as well next week.
Okay, sure, because there's some questions here. And I get some of those films that came out concerning the 3 that were kind of, again, pointing away from them and exonerating them. And actually they didn't get released based on innocence, right? It was a different clause or a different legal maneuver.
Yeah,
they're still considered guilty.
They're guilty at law. That's correct. They were given something called an Alford plea, which was a Supreme Court case, Alford versus North Carolina, where somebody was able to, where they found it permissible to plead guilty while maintaining innocence. So it's kind of like a paradoxical position, but he's able to say, okay, I'll take the guilty plea for my legal benefit, but I'm still going to say I'm innocent.
Absolutely.
So they're guilty. The Alford plea is a guilty plea. So they pled guilty in 2011, and they were found guilty in two separate court cases. Those cases were bifurcated because one guy had a confession, and and they were unanimous. So 24 jurors all came up with guilt, and they're still professing their innocence.
Right. Well, I'll tell you what, let's look at that in next week. We'll include everybody tonight to let friends know. I'm sure once we advertise it, put it out there, that we're going to have some that take the other side of the fence, and William's going to come to give you some materials, and I'm going to come to bring some new materials from law enforcement side of things that may not have got out as clearly as it should have too, and we'll dig into that next week in this SIIUK class. It'll be all about this case, the West Memphis 3, and we're going to dig into that the whole time. But tonight we're going to finish out on Section 9, so we're going to have to say goodbye to William Ramsey tonight. William, listen, brother, I appreciate very much your research and what you're doing, and I'm going to dig into the book that he just sent me on the West Memphis 3. I'm going to take a look at his because I have never read his on that subject. So hope you get it. Take a read. Let's take a look at it, and William, good night. We thank you very much.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it, and I'd be glad to answer any questions next week.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot now.
All right. Take care. God bless. Bye-bye.
Folks, we're going to take a 3-minute break, just a 3-minute or so, maybe up to 5, depending on if you got to get coffee or whatever else. So let's do that tonight as we get we have one last section to deal with tonight on the surveillance and going after perpetrators, hunting things down, finding the actual evidences and so forth. So that's important to look at. A lot of cases have been lost over the years because nobody knew how to look at the occult side of it and to nail down that. And the spiritual sense of dark powers being used, real powers, to keep people away from the real stuff. So let's take about 3 to 4 minutes, and we'll be back with 45 minutes of finishing out week number 9 on surveillance and tracking down. We are on our way back tonight. This is the final 45 minutes. We want to go over the surveillance and tracking down on the perpetrator side of things, kind of what we're talking about. Again, thank you to William Ramsey, and appreciate so much. Please take a look at his site. Please take a look at his books, and at least check in, because, again, someone that wants meticulous verification and taking a look at it, and that's what you got to do, even investigations. Our goal overall, please understand, from Shatter's perspective and what we've done for years, is to help the victim. Go after working with and helping the victim, and that's been the big issue for years and years and years. There is this other side of it now. By the way, let me check here. I don't see our microphone moving at all. Let me see. You hear me tonight? I think so. There we go. I think everything's fine. We're just taking a look at the last section. If you are on page, I mentioned on page 97 in your workbook, okay? This is a workbook for you to work in and write things down, please, because you're going to need it. You're going to need it. Some of you tonight can take a look at the Arliss Perry case and dig into it and research it and see what else you find. You can look at Maury Terry's book, and I recommend the reading of it, The Ultimate Evil. We want to also say that you should take a look at William Ramsey's books, and again, look at these cases. Look at the Arliss Perry case. Look at the Process Church. And once again, though, as mentioned, there could be clearly some danger. Obviously, for Arliss, a 19-year-old girl, again, wasn't sexually raped, according to everything I've read so far, and even law enforcement folks I talked about. Others have asked about us to talk concerning some people that are in law enforcement that I can tell you about, I will. Others I cannot, and that's just requested by folks, and so I'm going to keep the confidentiality thing going on with some. And please understand, the Process Church, the underground, the Brotherhood, people like that. They're going to use a lot of covert. When they're checking up on who's checking up on them. We are on page now, at page 97, the bottom, the spiritual surveillance tracking. Now, you notice what William mentioned about Process Church individuals, where they learn the concept of telepathy right away, and the concept of feeling. There's a manual that was put out by Colonel Shannon, the 1st Earth Battalion, in which soldiers were going to be trained in telepathy, clairvoyance, being able to feel or see being able to kind of project out and see where a sniper was. So a lot of the chosen ones that we dealt with, satanic ritual abused, SRA, highly trained, that's why we had to learn the hard way spiritually, that they were able to sense our coming, realize our coming, spiritually, try to get into our staff's heads and astral project and all the rest. So in the tracking down of and even helping and working and protecting and doing surveillance with victims, I'm telling you, you need to have enormous spiritual prayer and coverage. And I've said this to officers who've laughed at me before and said, "Oh, I've got my gun, and, I got the department behind me." I said, well, that's fine, but that doesn't mean that you're not going to be diverted, and never get to the crime issues and so forth. And a lot of those, and truthfully in law enforcement too, a lot of those officers that I knew who didn't know a thing about anything satanic, didn't know anything about anything in the underground, it's very hard for them to comment. They just would laugh it off. But then there are those who got into it and saw it. So remember to cover yourself, cloak yourself, cover yourself and your victim in prayer. Pray against all dark powers and dark power, anything that dark spirits would empower an individual to do, to project out, to read minds, to do all those things that dark spirits will help them do. Pray against ritual demons being sent, that kind of stuff. Demons protecting the ground, protecting the area, See, perpetrators, high-level ritual perpetrators, they're all going to believe they're completely covered and cloaked by their powers. There's even a ritual in September, the Hands of Glory, that deal with gaining the powers of invisibility. And I simply take spiritual warfare seriously. And you can't penetrate that unless you have something superior. And that's, again, the hand of God, the Lord Jesus, the realization of the cross and the blood of Christ, and the authority you have. And you need to pray against those dark powers and then pray for the exposure. And that's true there's hundreds of folks that connected up with Project Josiah. They're still praying concerning Bohemian Grove for the ultimate, opening up of that and finding the more victims and all the perpetrators. And that's just necessary. I think one night what we're going to do here, in between the two classes, between these 9 weeks and the next 9 weeks, next week we'll deal with the West Memphis 3. The week after that, we can jump into Jack Whiteside Parsons. The week after that, we can jump into the Process Church. So maybe 3 weeks we can have just 2 hours of engagement on particular groups and all that you've researched and all that we've looked at, and maybe bring some experts on, and then we'll get into the second part of this later in June when we have the workbooks out long enough for you to get hold of them. So let's take a turn on your page to page 99 in your workbook. 99 in your workbook. And we have some appendixes that we haven't got to either, so we have a little bit more to do with this workbook. But let's take a look at surveillance and tracking down perpetrators. How would you track down the perpetrators behind Arliss Perry in her death? How would you track down the son of Sam, what was behind him? Or the Charles Manson, what was really going on behind all of that? So that's important. And again, the issue of the hand of God. Now, I'm going to deal with this. Why deal with tracking down and doing surveillance, tracking down perpetrators? 5 reasons tonight, okay? 5 reasons tonight. Number 1, they're perpetrators, evil and criminal. So very clearly, anybody who's an SRA that was, you can only be an SRA MPD because somebody caused the trauma-based splitting, projected the programming, summoned the demons, did the training, did the rituals, did this, all the stuff. So perpetrators are perpetrators, and they are doing violent evil, and they are wrecking and ruining a lot of lives, and they are criminal in every aspect of the term. Is there a payday someday, even if humanity does not catch them? Sure. Everything is uncovered and laid bare before the eyes of God, to whom we must give account. But one of the reasons, they are perpetrators, they are evil, they're criminal. Number two, no one else is. I mean, here and there, who else is going to hunt down the perpetrator? There are cold cases all over the place that have cult background. I've got one here locally, a little 14-year-old, Sarah Bain, and another 17-year-old, Kathy Menendez, out of Alliance, and the first little girl was out of Rochester. One was slaughtered, stabbed, cut, bloodletting, sexually abused and used, and finally killed in a ritual on demon rebels. The other one was the same exact thing on a ritual called Satanic Rebels. Unsolved case. You can take a look at it. The FBI now has taken over. They've got a big billboard. I mention the names out loud now because they put it on the billboard. So that case that occurred in Portage County off of Futon Road. And I've been on that road many times. Matter of fact, not too long ago. And that's where, again, a little girl, 14, abducted. You got to understand what they've gone through. And that outrages me. And that moves me to go after the stuff and even go after the perpetrators. So, number 2, pretty much nobody else is going after the perpetrators. And when it comes to the vast field, psychologists, psychiatrists, and counselors and helpers, their main deal is to deal with helping the victims. And that is the number 1 thing. But, so, in my work in this field, the bottom line is on a preemptive or on an aggressive level, nobody's really going after these underground. Again, look at Ezekiel chapter 8. And there was 70 perpetrators in there. There was human sacrifice, there was bloodletting, there was child sacrifice inside that cavern. God showed Ezekiel the detestable things, and that's all what it's all about. And so nobody else is. There's got to be those that God will call to do so, like a Josiah. Number 3. Are you ready? They will not stop. It's not in them to just one day stop. They're too far down into it. They've got demonization. Some of them are multiple also that are intact, and there's a lust for what they do. There's a power and privilege and rank. We're on point 3. They will not stop. Point 1, they are perpetrators, evil, and criminal. Point 2, there's really hardly anyone else going after them. Number 3, they will not stop. Number 4, they are stoppable. And that's what I'm saying. Why should we go after this? Josiah went after folks that were doing human child sacrifice and stopped them. In Ezekiel, the ultimate end of that it did get stopped eventually. But God did take Ezekiel not just to the detestable things, not just to look at the evidence, not just to look at the ugly things, but he took them right to the faces of the perpetrators. God knows how to find them. God knows how to, bring them down. He knew how to bring down Pharaoh. He knew how to bring down King Herod in the book of Acts. Number 5, listen to me carefully on this one. Listen to me carefully. They could be converted. Saul of Tarsus was very violent out there. He was involved in the approval of the death of Stephen. Ultimately, he got converted. Now, son of Sam, we're going to inquire whether he will be able to write to us, talk with us. We're going to try to do an engagement. I'm just going to give you my personal opinion. This is all it is right now, personal opinion. Son of Sam, the guy himself, is multiple. It's true that part of him may have turned to Christ or became religious. It's true that he may have had threats to be silenced. But it's also true that sub-cult parts could have been shut down, put down. So I don't know, Jeffrey Dahmer was a multiple. John Wayne Gacy was a multiple. Ted Bundy was a multiple. And nobody really knew how to dig into the cult parts or the parts that actually did the slaughtering. You got to know that in a multiple that does that kind of thing, subparts that can slaughter and harm and cut and demonize and harm a person with joy in doing it, whereas the main person would be horrified that their hands were used. So in 5 things of why should you do it, number 1, because they are perpetrators, they're evil, and they're criminal. Number 2, no one else really is going after the perpetrators. Number 3, they will not stop unless be stopped. Number 4, they are stoppable. I do believe with the examples of Josiah and with Ezekiel 8 that's possible. And then 5, it's possible they could be converted, but the proof's in the pudding. You still have to deal with the crime. You still have to deal with what they've done. And you know what? If they have to go to jail, look at Sean Sellers. I remember listening to a video I was watching where he talks about, this is a young boy into Satanism, drinking blood, doing deeper things, getting deeper and deeper and deeper. Some believe he was part of a group. And he eventually shot in the head his stepfather and his own mother. He had an altar in his closet. I remember listening to him say how when he took the protective pentagram or amulet off his chest, he felt his chest expand. He killed them and then laughed with a satanic glee. Later, we read where he turned to Christ, but he was put to death, one of the youngest. Question in the classroom: what would you say to someone who is praying against a perpetrator and the perpetrator does psychic warfare and threatens to hurt other multiples who the programmer is controlling? Well, ultimately, we have the hand of God. God, do whatever it takes. God, stretch your hands out. That's kind of like the Moses having to pray while the demonized cult nation was fighting against Israel. The truth is, in some of these battles, they are power encounters, and what you heard me say on Monday night, last night, in the area of the power of prayer, in the area of, and you might want to listen to last night's archives in the spiritual warfare class, that praying is designed for us to get answers. But we're not supposed to stop until we do get the answers, till it's in our hand. So there's things that we're praying about that's on our prayer list, that's been on our prayer notebook here for 20 years, 10 years. There's all kinds of cases and individuals and things, and that's why we have so much to pray about when we do this. So the issue is to say, God, cloak me, cover me, protect me, but also, Lord, and target, and you're going to have to pray. And you're going to have to pray that if a person does not want to repent and come down and they're going to harm people, they're going to do blood sacrifice, God, do whatever it takes to bring them down. Now, this is the God that brought down Pharaoh. This is the God that brought down Herod. One angel of God was sent, struck him with a sword. So all I'm telling you is that prayer brings about God's action, and that action, for example, an angel of God is sent in the book of Acts to get Peter out of prison. But in one case, an angel of God is sent to strike King Herod. Even Josephus, the non-Christian historian, wrote later about that episode that the king filled up with maggots and died 5 days later. The book of Acts talks about it being a judgment, and that can't happen. Ananias and Sapphira, that can't happen. Is that what we want? Do I ever pray, God, kill somebody? No. Do I ever pray, God, do whatever it takes? We prayed for you to convert them. We prayed for you to stop them. We prayed for you to engage them. Sometimes you'll hear, if you're ever in the car with us, praying, God, do what you did to Saul of Tarsus. Look how he brought him down and then he got saved. But we also know there's times in cases that I'll bring out in the second half. We're going to bring out actual cases all through the second half and tell you about some of the intervention we believe God brought in. Next question. Has the programmer... Well, interesting. You'll need to contact me on that, okay? I'm not going to mention the name, and I'm not going to mention a response. Has the programmer concerning the Alliance case been brought down yet? No. He's a perpetrator that will never. And we've engaged him again and again. He's attacked us. He's very observant and uses astral and telepathy. He uses all those things to try to find out what everybody's doing to still bring him down. He's still out there and he's still going to do stuff. So is he still on the prayer list, on the map? Is it still a target? Is it still an issue? Yes. State's evidence been turned on this? Yes. Have the feds or anyone else been able to bring him down yet? No. I believe that there's real powers behind all of this. So contact me. For the one that put the question up, contact me at Shatter mailbox at yahoo.com. What you know. We can talk. Second thing here tonight in the last 20 minutes of this class, this whole 3 hours tonight, is how can we do this? How can we go after perpetrators? Let me just say this. Number one, how can you do this? Number one, becoming fierce in prayer. Becoming fierce in your opposition to real radical evil. A fierce prayer warrior. Now, I remember years and years ago, I was reading the 3 volumes of Charles Hodge Theology written by Charles Hodge, and I've never forgotten the first time, and I read it a second time, read it a third time, and I remember when Charles Hodge said, and he was explaining the wicked Queen Mary, and that she feared the prayers of John Knox more than an invading army. The wicked queen feared the prayers of John Knox more than an invading army. Okay? You're needed. Let me be personal and preachy for a moment. You are needed to give up your life, to surrender your life, to deny self, take up the cross, follow Christ. You have one life to live, and you're needed in the salvation, healing, and deliverance of lives. In these cases, human trafficking, satanic ritual abuse, cult murders, and these kind of things, what Christians are going after? They're helping these people get out. I read an article today about the case in Nigeria. 6 arrested over voodoo prostitution ring in Nigeria after gang branded the women with irons, and they did these voodoo rituals and curses on them and scared them so much and said they would have to be killed in a voodoo sense if they ever tried to get out. Who's going to go against that? Is anybody going to pray against the big drug lords that are using poleros and using priestesses and using dark powers and giving ritual sacrifices to Santi Murti? Wicked Queen Mary feared the prayers of John Knox more than an invading army. So all I can say is God knows how to make you, if you'll surrender and yield and give yourself, He knows how to make you fearless for the right reasons. So how can we do this? A fierce, growing to the point of fearless prayer warrior and servant of God. Number 2, you're going to have to take the time to research, whatever you want to call it, investigation, research, look for. I'll give you one example. I'm working with trying to help the federal officer's wife out of Cleveland. She's constantly telling us about this guy named Caino, coven name. Big, tall guy, wears a turban, deeply into the dark arts, into the voodoo, cantabile, other things, very bloody, very sadistic, very dark spirits. We've heard about this for a while, but we can't nail it down. We cannot nail it down. We're to the point where I'm almost to the point where I'm not even believing what the victim is telling me. So one day when the victim was away, and I was kind of frustrated hearing about it again and again, so I take one of our guys and we just started praying, just praying hard. God, if this guy is for real, help us to find him. The only information that I wrote down about this guy, remember again, writing down notes, records, I wrote down his name, wrote down the information, of course, praying about it. I was told that he's been seen on Thornton Street. So, praying, frustrated, but praying, I go to Thornton Street, driving down the street, talking about it. Here comes a 6'6" tall man, turban, big spirit stick. It's a wooden stick like a snake that is a spirit where they contain spirits in it, walking down the road. Instantly, I have to stop my car, get out. I get out of my car right in the middle of the road. I run around the back of my car and I yell, Kaino. Sure enough, this man turns around. So I begin to say, hey, leave this woman alone. I'll call her Mary. That's not her real name. Leave Mary alone. I went into things. You need to leave her alone. And he just says, who are you? And I told him my name from Shatter the Darkness. He got angry. And I said, I'm going to pray for you. And he yelled at me, no. And he went, he basically took off. So from there, I drove straight over to Mary's apartment. We had keys. She had given us keys. I went inside the apartment. And when I went inside the apartment, we're looking around to see if anybody else has been in there messing around or writing cult symbols. She's had been broken into a lot of times. The phone rings. The other guy that was with me picks it up, answers it. All I can hear, and then he hands me the phone, is that same guy, Kaino, yelling at Mary. Why did you bring those people on me? Why did you tell them about me? Why are they coming after me? And I let him talk for a moment, then I said, Kaino, this is Russ. I just saw you on the street. You told me you didn't know Mary, and now you're calling, yelling at her. And he got caught red-handed. So that's the kind of thing I'm saying. With fierce prayer and pursuit, tracking with that behind you, providentially, God knows how to do that. Okay? And number three, how can we do this? Experience. It's a simple word. Experience in prayer, experiencing doing this, learning stuff. And you're getting stuff we didn't have back in 1982. If I could have learned this stuff back then, we could have averted a lot of things that happened. But we learned the hard way. And I'm giving you information that comes from the hard way. Experience. Experience in your knowledge of this stuff. Experience in your walk with God in prayer. Experience in beginning to go after some of it. I mean, in the series, and I hope that you've done this already, that's part of the homework too, Dark Rituals, Dark Powers off our website. Dark Rituals, Dark Powers, how to detect if dark rituals are going on. And just gaining a couple individuals to begin to pray with you. You don't have to go out and have a big sign that says, hey, we are praying against covens. That would be foolish. You get into the gathering of prayer like Rhoda's house, and you begin to put up the prayers, and from that little house came the hand of God, an angel sent, chains broke off of him, and everything else. There you go, Shane, thank you. Proverbs 4:7, wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore get wisdom. And that's what I'm saying here in the area of experience and wisdom and insight and beginning to do it and beginning to watch and beginning to get out there and learning. There's a proverb also in Proverbs that says, walk with the wise and you will grow wise. Walk with the wise and you will grow wise. And I think that's important. And I think that's part of what you're doing now. And I commend you for that. And I pray God to give you great, great courage along the way. The last point on page 99 is this. What do you do with the information? And what I mean information here now is evidential information. Okay? Evidential information. What do you do with that? Number one, guard it and multiply it. The idea is guard it and copy it. Have others that you are building a team with or whatever know about it, okay? If, for example, in going after the Kathy Menendez case, the Sarah Bain case, we went out there. We met a guy providentially that knew the woods well. He goes, "Oh, yeah, I've heard about all those deaths. Did you hear about the little cabin in the woods, which is like a 10-minute walk away?" No, we didn't hear about that. So he took us to the cabin. We got into the cabin. Guess what? There's an old bed frame where somebody was tied down. There was masking tape, green masking tape. There were these little knives. There were clothing. There was all kinds of stuff in there. It's very possible that part of the ritual was done in there. So we took pictures. We took all kinds of stuff. I did gather up the knives very carefully and package them. Took all of the pictures, took all of the stuff to Beaver County, to Alliance, to Portage County. So it's very important, okay? If you're looking at the middle, I'm looking at the classroom notes here, where it says, how can we do this? Fierce prayer mapping, fierce prayer warrior. Number 2, tracking and not giving up ever. And number 3, experience. Experience with God, experience in doing things. So you got to start somewhere. You got to start somewhere, okay? So the last segment, when it says, what do we do with the information? One, is that you, when you're obtaining the information, you secure it, it becomes confidential, becomes critical. You need to copy. You need to make sure others know about it so that it can never be taken away from you. I mean, if somebody did or somebody came in, then you still have other stuff. If you need to take it to law enforcement, that's important too. The second thing is, again, add it to your data bank to where you're adding more and more. Shatter the Darkness by Tom Dunn's work is going to come out with a nationwide United States map that has little pins on it all over. And guess what? It has all kinds of cult crime cases. And you'll be invited to come into that and add to it and do other stuff and give us stuff to put up to broaden things. Connecting dots is important. That's acquiring more information, acquiring more evidence, and so forth. So data banking it is important so that you can connect it with anything else. Look at all the other things you know. And number 3, with wisdom, turn state's evidence. That's why I said earlier on to find law enforcement people that you know. I don't care if you even find a judge. Anybody you can find that you're going to trust, that you're going to believe, that you're going to, that maybe is clearly a strong Christian committed to righteousness and committed to things, that is honest with integrity. You got to ask God to give you those kind of people. We have 10 minutes left tonight. We're going to ask you if there's any questions in the classroom tonight. And the homework for the week, let me give you the homework. Go to William Ramsey's sites. They're also listed on last week's archives page. We're going to encourage you to look at his films that he put out. I'm going to ask you to look into the Arliss Perry case. Just see what you can find. See how, where it goes with some of the principles I'm giving you. Okay? And another part of homework, Arliss Perry, the one that we just talked about, Arlis. The girl that was killed in the Sanford Memorial Church. Arliss Perry. Arlis. And just put in the Arliss. If you put in a search for Arliss Perry, murder case, you're going to find a ton of stuff. Okay? The films that Ramsey has out, that William has out, the ones that I looked at on his site are free. And there's one other point of homework. Look at page 105, okay? In your workbook, page 105, evaluations. Please do that this week before next week. Just 7 simple questions. How are you doing? What have you learned? What is the main thing God has shown you? What have you been using the information for? What have you experienced in prayer? What have you experienced in spiritual warfare? And what will you do with the information you now have? I want you to fill that out because I'm going to eventually ask you to duplicate that, put it on an email, and send me your answers. You don't have to do it right away, but in the next few weeks I'll be asking for page 105. If you can duplicate the questions on an email or just put it on a Word document, answer the questions and send it to me. Okay, homework 105. Any questions right now in the classroom? We got about 9 minutes left tonight. Yes. Can you and your husband do the homework together? Absolutely. Put a Q in before you put the question so I know. Okay. Please note, when you see somebody's written statement, be sure to see the typed transcript and note differences. Okay. Can you talk about sex trafficking and how that might occur in time to occult crimes? Well, one of the things is in satanic ritual abuse, like the Monarch cases in Bohemian Grove and other places, or the Franklin cover-up case, girls that are programmed are used in sex trafficking. The code to the sex personalities are given to, or bought by other people, and they're given the code, and the girl goes over, and they just simply read the code or call the name. You can read about that in Del Griffiths' book, Secret Weapons, when he talks about a subpersonality in one of the multiples called Sexy Sadie. Particular programming just for sex, and they can do anything and do whatever and so on and so on. So that's true. They're used constantly in that. And I just read about the voodoo case out of Nigeria. They took the women, binding them with voodoo spells and scaring them and so forth, and they took them all the way to Spain and forced them into sex trafficking. So just like in drug trafficking, now a lot of the drug lords are now doing human trafficking because it makes a lot of money. You heard about a case in the United States where a semi-truck was coming from Mexico filled with 300 people standing up because they had to be standing up in order to fit them all in the truck. And it was related to sex trafficking too. So, we can talk about that. Sex trafficking used by anybody whose practitioners will summon demons for what? To protect them, to go against cops, to keep them guarded, to bless their trade. They will use the Orishas, the idea in Santeria, Palo Mayombe, specifically Palo Mayombe, the Santi Murti, they're going to use and summon and give appeasement to. And so demonic, and realize again, drug trafficking, demon worship, and sex addiction issues are three of the main things in the book of Revelation that when God finally brings judgment, he calls for a global repentance, and hundreds of millions are connected to pharmacon, demon worship, and sexual addiction. But we will talk more in that area because you might find houses like the girls in Cleveland. We've looked hard so far. We've not found one iota of occult connection to the man Castro that kept these three women for 10 years. He was brutal. He beat them. He starved them at times. He sexually abused them. He needs to go down. He may have clearly killed the babies and the one girl. That's bad enough. And you might run, while you're dealing with going after satanic ritual abuse, you might run into things like this, or you might run into information on the street, or a sub-personality, an occult loyal one, will know about that some like sex trafficking where a house is, where they're doing stuff. We're still going after a nun that gave us information about videos and retired priests that killed another one of the priests and are doing stuff to boys. We're still hunting that down. Question: is it true that the cat print clothing on girls, women can indicate monarch? Well, I mean, yeah, anything that they've used in programming, whatever you used, whether it's a bunny, we've had the issue with bunny rabbits. Monarchs, the monarch is primarily purple monarch butterfly, left ankle. And the monarch butterfly is God. God gave us the monarch. It's a beautiful butterfly. It's the only little creature that has migrated to every continent. There's a reason why they used monarch. The idea behind it is put these sleepers in every continent of the world. But a little purple monarch butterfly, left ankle low, small. But you can use cat print clothing, you can use rabbit, anything that the programmers have used to be a trigger, a shutdown trigger or whatever else can be used. A few more questions, and then we have like less than 4 minutes left. Question here is, if there was one book to recommend to the Satanists looking to escape, what book would that be? Nobody's Angel by Gregory Reed. Nobody's Angel by Gregory Reed. That's one that I would suggest. On the emotional level, Nobody's Angel by Dr. Gregory Reed. Offhand, anyway. There may be some others. I'm glad you brought that up because now there's a number of books out. I mean, the truth is, Karen's book called Unshackled. I interacted with emails with her, the author of that book. Unshackled, you should read Unshackled first. I just didn't feel like, some books like the Rabbit Trail one or the minus one leads people back to Mormonism. So there's some things I cannot recommend and wouldn't recommend and wouldn't want anybody that's trying to get out to read. But Unshackled is something I think is okay. Secret Weapons, if they're militaristic oriented, but on a level that will really speak to hearts. Nobody's Angel by Dr. Gregory Reed. Any other questions quickly here tonight? We are closing down in our last work here. Yes, page 105. If you will copy those questions either on an email or on just a word paper and answer those. In the next couple of weeks, I'll mention it over the next couple of weeks. I'd like to hear you. You don't have to give it to anybody else, and I won't read these unless you want me to. Matter of fact, if you want me to read your answers, mark on yours you'd like to. I would agree also. Out of the Devil's Cauldron by John Ramirez. I met John in New York, and I may have John on in the second class. I talked to him about coming on, and he agreed. So we may bring John on in the second 9 weeks. Out of the Devil's Cauldron. You're right. Good points. There's a lot of there's materials. There's helpful things. Anybody else tonight? Anybody else tonight as we think in terms of the class and the last couple of minutes? 2 minutes tonight to tell you that nobody loves you more. God loves you. Nobody loves you more than Him. Nobody knows you better. Nobody desires you. Nobody desires to protect you more. And I love to think in terms of Daniel, in the book of Daniel, as he's praying those 3 weeks, and the Prince of Persia's interrupting everything. And when the angel finally gets to Daniel, he says, "You who are highly esteemed." I mean, there is truth to the fact that if you I just look out of the Old Testament where in Samuel, I think it's 3:20 says that, those who honor the Lord, He will honor. You set out to honor the Lord in all you do. You sit up and renounce fear in every single way and say, "God, here am I, send me. Let me use this one singular life in every possible way for the salvation, spiritually, being born again of people, healing, deliverance, and their physical, deliverance. And then if you can be used to put down some evil. Can't put down all of it, but you can put down some, and that some may be related to victims that will, future victims that they would, will no longer, they won't be victims because you helped bring down some stuff. Listen, we need your prayers. We need you to be involved in intercession and prayer constantly. We appreciate that deeply, and we are grateful for that. Prayers for you tonight. Prayers for William Ramsey tonight. Prayers for God to give truth and verification and protection, and for the perpetrators from whatever background, brotherhood, process, whatever, that may be listening to the program through the archives to see what we're doing. We pray that God will engage you. We pray that God will visit you. We pray that you will come out, because you're going to lose your soul. You're going to die. You're going to go to hell. You're going to be lost forever. And a Savior died to get you out of that distortion and the devil's lies. So we pray for you to get out of that, and for God to visit you and show you that you need to. Jesus Christ can deliver you, save you, heal you, get you out, and bring you into his heavenly kingdom. I mean, listen, in the future, indestructible, irreversible, immortality, seeing God face to face, no one to harm anyone. That's God. We love you tonight.